All right, peace. Want to say peace to those who are potentially tuned in right now. This is your brother Wujao, and tonight, if anyone who doesn't know me, I tend to just go live. Try to make these more announced, ahead of time to give people a chance to, schedule their time to want to chime in on the discussion. But tonight's discussion, I'm going to have a brief discussion, unless others start filing in. But I want to continue to open discussion about topics related to ADOS. All right. So, I just started the stream. And if you're watching this, if it's already recorded as an archive, then you're probably going to want to skip through the first few minutes, because I'm going to basically stall for time a little bit and give people a chance to tune in and share the link for a little bit. See who all wants to partake in this discussion tonight. Nothing too heavy. Just want to have a continue the discussion that we've been having on different platforms, discussions that I've been participating in on other YouTube channels, on social media, on Facebook and Twitter. So, I'm just going to kind of pass out the link for a minute. And again, if you're watching this as an already recorded archive, then, by all means, feel free to kind of skip forward a bit until you get to us getting into our conversation. So bear with me for a moment, and I'm going to be passing out the link, sharing the link, and passing out the link for people to get on the panel. All right. I like the interactive discussions. Interactive is the way to go. I don't claim to know everything. I'm very interested in other people's perspectives on things, and if there's ever a difference, I always seek to try to reconcile based on information and being informed. All right. So again, just bear with me for a little bit, and let me get this link shared out. All right, so as I post a link to the panel, all I ask is that, when you come in, please mute your mic so that we don't disrupt the flow of the conversation. And also help me out and share this YouTube link so that people, will know that we're having this discussion. And then, come on in and chime in on the conversation. Don't be scared. All right. So I just posted the link. I've posted a few times. The link I'm posting right now is the link to come on the panel. All right. You don't have to have a, your webcam on or anything like that. You definitely have to have headphones or speakers and a microphone. All right. So we'll keep it easy and just continue this conversation. So while I'm waiting for people to either come on the panel or tune in, I just want to, reiterate, my interest in talking about ADOS, because, it's because one of the reasons is because I've been observing for a while, since it started to take off on social media, and I've never commented about it because, I make sure I practice, I try to make it a habit of coming, if I do give opinions or comments, I try to come from an informed position. So I always do research first. I always, investigate and do research. And, same thing as scholarship. Before you give an opinion about something, you want to do literature review. You want to check what the scholars are saying, check what people said prior to you coming, on the scene, and so on and so forth. So I did that with ADOS, the political advocacy movement, the hashtag ADOS, and with the co-founders of this particular political advocacy movement, who are Antonio Moore and Yvette Carnell, they have YouTube channels, and they've been doing this sort of thing for quite a while, ever since 2016 at the very least. And so I went back to their, to their channels, their outlets and platforms, and I, watched their videos. I haven't seen every single one, but I've definitely seen my share of them. I've actually taken the time to listen to a lot of their videos. They have hours and hours and hours of videos ever since 2016. And so, I wanted to catch up to what they were saying, what led up to even their participation in what they're doing. All right. And this is something I encourage everybody to do the same thing. And so after I did that, then, I've equipped myself with information to be able to, formulate some kind of opinions about what they're saying, their positions, what's being advocated, etc. And so anyway, so what I found is, and then, my personal knowledge of reparations, the reparations argument period, I think I was first introduced to reparations in 1990 in college. All right. I think it was the year after, and I think I may have someone popped in here. Greetings. I am King Sosa. So I don't know if you can hear me properly, but I just want to make sure I can hear you. Okay, so I'll tell you what, if you can hear me, just stay put for a second. Let me make sure that all the audio is clear. If you stay put, I'll be right back to you. But for YouTube, I'll still be here on YouTube. But give me 1 second, King Sosa. If you stay put, I'll be right back. All right, greetings. So let's try this again. So hopefully you can hear me, and I should be able to hear you fine.
Can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear. Loud and clear.
All right, cool.
All right, so give me a second. I'm just trying to, warm things up a little bit.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
In the conversation. So as I was saying, after I did my due diligence on the movement, going backwards in time, going backwards from 2016 and then working my way up to the present, I equipped myself with information on what was being advocated, what was Yvette and Antonio saying, why they were saying what they were saying, and actually researching the data that they had, have been showing and sharing with their audience. So, and I'm speaking about Breaking Brown and Tone Talks. All right, so that's their respective groups that ended up kind of merging to form this political advocacy movement that we now know as, the hashtag ADOS. All right, so, and what I was saying was my personal introduction to reparations was as far back as 1990, and I believe it was a year after Congressman John Conyers introduced H.R. 40 in 1989. And I remember in college, how I was introduced to it was that we had basically discussed it and what it would mean if it had been passed, as a law and everything. And it was basically how I remember it looking back. I mean, I know more about it now than I did back then, but even back then, it was something that was noteworthy and worth discussing because we discussed it in the classes and its importance, and the impact it would have, We discussed that way back then, but back then, I was younger. I didn't really see it the way I see it now, but I do remember having these discussions as part of my classes and things. But those are the days, when you're younger, you don't really see things. You learn and you mature and you see things a little differently as you get older and so on and so forth. But that was my journey. That was my first introduction to reparations, conversation about reparations, what it was, and the whole thing. So anyway, I think I'm gonna have to mute you. I'm hearing some noises. Or if you can mute yourself, King Sosa. If you can mute yourself for now.
I'm muted right now. Like I don't think it's me. I'll mute myself again though. But I'm super quiet, so I don't hear nothing over here. But
okay,
I'll mute myself right now.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So anyway, what I'm seeing now, in the past month, at the least, maybe 2 months, that the conversation has become very, very, very polarized, and I see a lot of arguing. I call it fussing, because a lot of the arguments that I see are not fact based. There's a lot of arguments about opinions and what people would like. For example, what people would like this acronym to mean. People dislike the acronym. People disliking the framework of the justice claim itself, and so on. And it's not based on any data. It's not based on any facts. It's just what people feel, and what they desire. It's like people's prerogative. And so I see people arguing over prerogatives, and that's becoming very detrimental to any progress. So I've jumped into the conversation on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube conversations, and I've just been doing my best to try to offer clarification to the issues. People have a misunderstanding and things, and I've been seeing some common themes on this misunderstanding, and it really boils down to ignorance. And ignorance just means you don't know. So it's not like a derogatory term. I'm not trying to belittle anyone, but it's really, really boils down to ignorance. People just don't know. And so I just encourage people to slow down on their opinions, and just study. Just take time out to study. Learn about the political process. Learn about the legislative process, how laws are made. Learn the laws and the legal processes that governs all this stuff. And just with that alone, people will I think it will cut down on a lot of the back and forth that we're seeing. Not everything, but it would definitely cut back on a lot of the back and forth. All right, so anyway, I just wanted to give that kind of introduction, and I see we have a couple of people in here now, but if you could mute your YouTube side, if you can mute your YouTube audio, because you should be able to hear everything directly in here. All right, so anyway, because I'm hearing some feedback. I just want to give that kind of introduction. So if anybody can hear, if you can hear me, I'm gonna have to mute. I'm gonna have to mute everybody. All right, good. All right, appreciate that. So yeah, all right. So anyway, I wanted to kind of give that introduction, one, to allow people to chime in. I mean, to come on board and chime in, and then two, just to kind of bring people up to speed on where I plug in to this whole discussion, and why I'm even having this discussion, outside of the fact that I am a 1000% supporter of reparative justice for our ancestors who built this country. I mean, it's a long laundry list of things that we can say about our history here in this country. our ancestors, what they've the ordeals, the you know, the experiences, what's transpired and everything like that. So I'm a full supporter of reparative justice. I've always agreed with it when I first learned about it in the 1990. But it being framed as a justice claim and things like that, you know, like I said, you learn about that, and I'm in full support of it. So, and I'm also ADOS. I'm a United States citizen of the United States of America. I'm a citizen of the United States of America. I am a descendant of someone who became a victim of the institution of colonial and or United States of America slavery, Jim Crow, black codes, and all of the above that would qualify me in this particular justice claim in the class, in the distinctive class. All right. So anyway, that's my position. Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore, they are the face of this particular political advocacy movement by default, because its platform has been through social media, and they've been basically spearheading the charge on social media, on the social media platform. So by default, they became the face of this movement, but it is bigger than them. It's a whole lot of people that are you know, advocating this movement or these justice claims. So anyway, all right. So with that, you know, I want to open the floor up. You know, I see we got a couple of people here, and we could begin the conversation. And while we do that, basically all I'm going to do is kind of moderate a little bit. I just want to kind of keep it on track, to have some kind of order to the conversation, so we don't go all over the place. But basically, it's an open discussion. So whatever you all want to bring up and discuss, or maybe some of your concerns, or some of the things that you've seen people say that we can clear up, or whatever the case is, or if you are opposed to it, you know, we can hear it all. So feel free, you know, to open your mic, and you know, we could begin the discussion.
All right. Yeah, I'll jump on out there. Me personally, like, just so people know where I stand, I'm for it. And
oh, just 1 second. If you don't mind, if you could just you know, just give your name and where you hail from, or whatever, you know, just so.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. All right. I am King Sosa. I live in Atlanta, but I'm from South Carolina. I'm Geechee Gullah. And like I said, I'm for it. And a lot of the aggravation that comes with the whole movement is like, a lot of people just seem like they immediately just hate it and attack. Like, I very rarely hear like just civil discussions peacefully on, even if they disagree, you know what I mean? Like, you don't hear people working out the odds, you know, working out the problems what they understand and what they don't understand. I just see a lot of people arguing on information that they don't understand. They're making incorrect premises. People are posting incorrect information, and then other people are arguing about the incorrect information. And then you're in the chat room trying to correct what's being said wrong. You know what I'm saying? So I like to hear people. I like to see a more peaceful discussion about the subject. You know what I'm saying? And you know, when I first got into the whole learning about the whole thing, it's like, you know, when coming out of slavery, you know, I don't think we ever anticipated the psychological trauma that comes with slavery. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like when you watch the Khalid Browder story, and he had been in solitary confinement for so long. It's like, I don't think anybody really knew at the time, like, you know, you can't just, like, we needed counseling coming out of that. And we kind of suffered mentally for a while, and we still suffer from it. So, and people, you know, that's also a part of reparation process, you know, even though a lot of people just speak on money. So yeah, I'm gonna just pause it right there, and then I'll jump back in. But appreciate you having me on the panel with y'all. respect.
All right, yeah. Let's just go around the floor. So, anybody else want to kind of give some introductory comments? You know, let's start building this fire now. It's 11 o'clock. You know, we're gonna put it in for a little while. Let's see, we got two others. Anybody else want to kind of?
Yeah, you can hear me.
Oh man, I'm hearing a feedback. I think you have to mute something. Something is double. Oh, you in here twice.
I see two cameras.
Okay, yeah, you got. All right, I'm gonna mute you for a second because we're hearing that feedback. But yeah, I think you came in twice. You're gonna have to eliminate one of your. You must have clicked the link twice. You came in here twice. So I don't know if it's a hidden tab that you have open, but you definitely gonna have to come out of one of them. By the way, I muted you. So, but if you could figure that out.
Is that better?
No, not at all. Ooh.
I should be in once now.
Now let me see if I could do something about it. One second. Let me see. Give me a second. Let's see. How can I? Hold on. Just give me a second. I'm gonna have to mute you again. All right. Let me just because yeah, one of your things is gonna have to come out of here. Let's see. It's just that you're in here twice. Let's see. How can I? Give me a second. I apologize for those who are watching. Just let me just take care of this really quick here. All right, participant. All right, here we go. Let's see. Yeah, you in here twice. So I'm about to kick one of you out. So hopefully there's one that you are paying attention to. So if not, just come on back in. All right. Okay, I thought that was just remove.
I still see it. I see one camera off. You might need to jump out and jump back in.
Yeah, if you could do that, because I.
You hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, that was weird. Wow.
All right, so you got it. You got it. You got it. Go. You got the floor.
Yeah, I never did Zoom before, so this is new.
All right. Well, welcome to the Zoom club.
Yeah. So peace. I am Unbiased Sports. You know, I've been in the chat room a lot on everybody's channel. So I want to say this. I want to say that like there's been a lot of going back and forth about whether the immigrants, you know, have been taking the jobs from you know, ADOS, so to speak. And, you know, there's been a lot of denial. And I want to tell you straight up that some years ago, I'll say about 10 years ago, I worked for this meat distribution company. Damn near, I'll say 94% of it was Hispanic, and all the meetings were in Spanish, despite of the three English speaking people. Then I went to a shading company, I think this summer for like some cash for the summer. That was like 98% Spanish. And again, the meetings were held in Spanish. Then I went to a pharmaceutical company named Guess in Rahway, New Jersey, and that one's all Haitian. So that's 3 different companies, unrelated, 90% all immigrants, whether it's Spanish or Haitian. So that whole lie about taking a job, that's true. Everybody in there, and these were decent jobs. You know, people could definitely come up a little bit. They were given a chance. So how you get that many ethnicities or the same ethnicity in that one company if you're hiring to the public? Because New Jersey, central New Jersey is pretty diverse. Because everybody's there. So how you get one ethnicity in one company when everybody needs jobs and the jobs are paying like a little decent hourly rate? Then there was something in the paper where, you know, when they started the whole shipping immigrants back, when Donald Trump got in office or whatever, they start sending immigrants back. There was a company, it was a meat company, packaging company in Newark. They had, I guess a lot of their people back was shipped out to the native countries, you know, the whole illegal immigrant thing. So they was advertising in Newark for, I guess, like replacement people, and they was like catering to black folks at that time. So again, how are you in Newark, New Jersey, and most of your employees are Hispanic? Illegal at that. And they only was looking for black hirees when they was forced to, when they had to ship out half or majority of their workers to another, because they got deported, whatever. So, that's true. That they are the immigrants, illegal and legal, are definitely holding jobs down.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's deal with that for a second, because that's one of the pushbacks that people bring up, and so this is why I always encourage people to actually go back and watch Antonio Moore and Yvette Carnell's videos, because now this is the problem. Now this is something that this would be my critique for what Yvette and Antonio did, and I'm hearing the echo a little bit, so for a second, I'm just gonna mute you real quick so I can stop that echo. So this will be my critique of what Yvette and Antonio, and it's not really a critique. It's just growing pains. I would see it as growing pains, but because Yvette and Antonio, they have a lot of hours worth of videos on their platforms, and it takes a lot to sit and sift through all of that stuff. So I'm glad that they created the website atos101.com, and they've basically streamlined the Black agenda, and they have an About Us on there explaining a nice summary of the political advocacy movement and things like that. And so I hope that they will continue to update the website and streamline some of the things that they've been saying for the past 2 years, okay? Because it's a lot. If you go to her channel, you look in the archives videos, you'll be overwhelmed. Nobody's gonna sit there and say, hey, I can't watch all of that. But the reason why I bring it up all the time is because they have been showing data. They've been showing census records. They've been showing statistics from different bureaus, from state level, the federal level, different cities, major cities around the country, so on and so forth. And so when people just come out and say, well, that's not true, immigrants do not take jobs from ADOS people and stuff like that, it's a clear sign that they just haven't seen the data. And not even to say, because, you compare data. So if somebody's going to say that, then you bring your data and you compare it to some more data, and then you kind of judge and make some conclusions or whatever the case is. But people are not even doing that. People are probably going off of a personal experience on both sides. And so that's what I always encourage. So hopefully they will start to do that. And that's what I've been kind of doing. I've been trying to, like, the videos when I go back, because it takes a lot out of you to watch their videos. And I've done that, but I didn't watch it to extract stuff. So now if I peruse through any videos and I see something that sticks out to me, I'll try to take, a snippet, a screenshot or whatever, so that I can show people where these certain data points are. Then you have scholarly economists such as William Darity, Sandy Darity, whose data that they use, and also others. And so they have books, they have papers, they have articles, and they have videos. They've been done lectures. So if people were to search William Darity right on YouTube, you'll see he's been talking about reparations for a long time. He's been crunching the numbers. He's been updating the data from older groups that have been championing or leading a charge for reparations, such as the NAACP, I believe, and then you have NCOBRA. So he's been crunching the data and things and bringing all that stuff up to date. So you have a lot of different ways that people could look at that and see that it's not some arbitrary feel good that ADOS is not against black immigrants and saying that you're still in the jobs, therefore I don't like you and stuff like that. This is the way people are making it seem. And so that's adding fuel to the fire. But anyway, so I don't that's what I suggest people to go back and review the data if at all possible. So I don't know. Anybody else have any other comment or their experience or data, if you have data that you could share? No.
I can jump in if I can be heard.
Oh yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, hey, what's up, Wujalis 42?
All right, Hotep, how you doing? Peace.
Hello to everyone on the panel. I wanted to jump in because I identify a lot with ADOS. I'm someone who, I was watching a lot of her videos heavy in 2018 and 17. I really started paying attention to Yvette Carnell and Antonio. I was kind of somewhat like I was familiar with them. I mean, when you're interviewing people like Byron Allen, I'm gonna check that out. So I watched a couple of his videos and I started to increase that. And to put it simple, did a video about, it's called Black Power's Meta, Most Effective Tactics for Black Power. And I saw reparations as being one of a handful, because you don't want to flood it with a whole bunch of things, so you can't get people to agree on a whole bunch of things. You want a handful of real power moves. Their approach to it, ADOS, was very first level, but I was completely aligned with what they were doing as far as this is the first level. What you do from here, it becomes more complex. But just that first level, having a political agenda, something that I haven't seen, that at least nothing that was actually pushed with a populist movement. I haven't seen it in my lifetime. Like, this is new to me. And this is something I was saying, if we're really about power, we're going to push this. And one thing I want to say before I get off, I'm optimistic about reparations. I think it can be done. It's been done for other people and all that. And I know there's an obstacle when it comes to Black people. But I've been optimistic. Mm-hmm. That said, I think even if you run into roadblocks, it illuminates who your real enemies are. If you're about a whole bunch of things under the sun, all the different things that we've discussed, then you really, some people are just going to align with that because it's in their interests. Like we got white Hebrews, we got people, there's this white dude who sounds just like young Pharaoh. And if you're not really making a real power move, you're not going to see who's anti-Black power. ADOS has revealed it. And I think it's time to fight back. I'm really thinking about doing a petition against Joy Reid, because this is the second time she's tried to paint ADOS complete smear. Well, not even worse than a smear, just a complete lie. We're going to create something fake. Mm-hmm. Why that propaganda against a political movement that I watch grow organically, that is intent on making a Black power move, however difficult it might be? Again, I'll say I'm more optimistic for a lot of reasons.
Right.
Why is it that worse than, a lot of the bickering, because a lot of Pan-African brothers, including myself, we're a little bit crazy. Worse than that, you have MSNBC calling the movement a Soviet robot operation. And then they had, if you watch that guy they had, the minister, I think his last name is Thompson.
Yes.
I'm wondering if he's just controlled opposition, if he's just a front, because he was really, that is the way that you're not going to get reparations. If the approach was like that, where we just talk about it on TV and say we've been doing it, and no movement where it's saying, hey, Democrats, no reparations, no vote. And I'm a liberal. I'm like, I'd be okay with Bernie Sanders. Oh yeah, Bernie Sanders, no reparations, no vote. Now, that for what little power we have has got them spinning around in circles to the point where it's fun to watch. But it's getting a bit aggravating, and I think you can elevate the discussion if you hold people accountable. And that's why I'm thinking of getting her out the paint and doing a petition, because they've tried to do that before because of some things she said about gay people. We have her sponsors. This can't continue. This is as bad as like limiting the vote. This is just right there taking Black first politics and trying to destroy it. Because they've had all the opportunity to bring up this discussion about reparations. They haven't done it. Matter of fact, they've had people who are against reparations on the show, and they're just talking about nothing. You know, not checking them. Wait a second, you're a Black dude. Why were you writing? And this is, I know his last name is McWhorters or something, McWhorter. If I have a Black dude on TV and he's written against reparations, I'm grilling him. I want to see why is he crazy? You know, where did he lose his mind?
Well, let's hold on. Let's
go ahead.
Now because you're saying quite a few things. Let's kind of unpack that, because you brought us a couple of good points, and so let's see. Let's try to probably work in reverse, I guess. So yes, see, this is what people don't understand is that, okay, first we have because you mentioned what you first you mentioned that ADOS represents a level 1 type of initiative, you know, in this movement, you know, whatever case is, because once you go from here, things get a little more complex. So what is revealed, like you said, it reveals things, and what is overwhelming is that this ADOS, this surge of this movement right now has revealed our vulnerability and ignorance to the political process, to legislation, to law, and how, you know, claims are made and how justice claims are made. Because a lot of people's arguments are, you know, they're coming from a place of just not understanding. You can tell by the whole characterization of divisiveness when people say, you know, the movement is divisive because it separates Black people into different sections and stuff, and that just shows that people don't understand just the very fundamentals of making a claim. Even on the judicial branch of government, when you go into the court system and you file a lawsuit, you have to identify the victim, the damage, and the perpetrator of the victim. It's very, very simple, and you have to be very, very specific, you know. So that's one. And then two, like you said, this movement has really put the fire up under people who have been supposedly representing these arguments all of this time. And Cobra has been in business since 1987. And so whenever a new kid on the block comes up and gains more attention and has more vigor and fire, it's always going to ignite the people who have been on it for a longer period of time, because we tend to get lackadaisical. And so this new meat, this fresh blood coming into the picture is going to cause the old blood to step it up. And if they can't keep up, there's a pushback. And that's what's going on, because what you also mentioned, the guy, Minister Thompson, he recently had an interview on the Joy Reid show, and he basically called the ADOS movement a cyber COINTELPRO. And I wish I have the video clip, but I'm concerned about playing it and getting striked. So that's the reason why I don't want to play it. But I suggest people to go to the I think it was MSNBC. Go to the Joy Reid show. I Am Joy, I think that's what it's called. And you'll see him on there. His name is he goes by Minister Thompson or what have you. He's a spokesperson or representative of NCOBRA, and he's outright calling the movement a cyber COINTELPRO movement, and with a whole bunch of other things he's saying negatively about the movement. And her first question to him, her very first question to him was, first she gave some context. She said reparations is not new. It's been around since whatever year she said, and she said when it was first talked about, it was, you know, it was on and popping. People were talking about it. It was part of the discussion. And then she said it died out. And then she said with the seminal work of Ta-Nehisi Coates, I believe in 2015 or 12 or whatever, when he wrote his article, she said that reignited the conversation. And then she said it died down again. And she said now it's reignited again. And so her first question to him was, what is the reason for its surge now? And his answer, he bypassed the question, didn't really answer it. And he goes on, which tells you that he acknowledges the fact that the current ADOS movement headed by Yvette and Antonio is the answer, because in his full response, that's who he's talking about, but he's talking about it in the negative. And see, man, I wish I could play a clip, man. I don't even know, but I just don't want to take a chance in playing this clip. But you know, go watch it, and you're gonna see exactly what I'm talking about, where he's basically accusing the movement of being a cyber COINTELPRO. He actually literally says that as a movement, and then he doesn't see it as legitimate, because he says we have illegitimate. Then he gives a comparison. He said anytime that you separate a section of black people from the rest of the global community or something, and I'm paraphrasing, he said you got to watch for that. You got to be careful for that. And you know, so he goes on. So it's very, very clear he's talking about the ADOS movement, but he doesn't mention Yvette Antonio by name or hashtag ADOS specifically. But everybody in the mother, you could tell who he's talking about. All right. So Cobra is on the attack right now because fire. See, this is something that people got to understand. Yvette, although she's a woman, and people got a question about her personal sexual orientation, all that stuff. But the one thing that people are going to have to just come to grips with to understand is that she is a warrior about this. She is passionate and she's a warrior about it. And she has no compromising type of position where she can actually straight shoot and say things as they are and what they are. So she's holding the fire to everybody. It doesn't matter. And you could see it in her videos. And that may rub people the wrong way, but people got to understand. So she addressed it. The most recent video from last night, Yvette addressed Cobra's attack on the ADOS movement, and she hits it straight on, straight up. And it is what it is. So hope people will be able to check that out. And I'm trying to think of something else you were saying. But yeah, so oh. Wait. Hold 1 second, because the audio from you to me has messed up. So you all stay put, and I have to leave and come back in one more time real quick. So y'all stay put. On YouTube, it's still okay, but just give me 1 second. Let me do this one more time here, and I have to figure out why that happens. So y'all forgive me for a second. I just gotta make sure I get back into the panel. I can't be left out of the panel here. Let's see. And by the way, so you all, you know, I put the link for the panel. Don't be afraid to join in. You know, nobody's gonna bite or anything like that. If you have, you know, something to say or whatever the case is, and make sure you share this link to this video, because we just having a conversation. All right. And now I am back in here, so you all should be able to hear me again. And if one of y'all could just verify that for me. Okay, good. Okay, so let me just finish my thought, and then I'll you know, pass the mic again. So again, the ADOS recent movement, and by the way, people got, you know, in order to kind of unconfuse people, ADOS as an acronym, it's twofold. Okay, and I try to make sure people understood this, at least on Facebook. ADOS is used in two ways. One, it is a distinguishing boundary description for a class of people that are party to a reparative justice claim. Okay, because in a reparative justice claim, you have to identify the claim holders. And so ADOS is a phrase acronym that stands for a phrase that stands for American Descendants of Slavery, which is a distinction to identify the claim holders of this claim. All right. Then you have the hashtag ADOS, which represents the political advocacy as a movement, and then of course on social media and so on and so forth. All right. So we gotta make sure we understand that ADOS is a description of people, and then it's also used for the movement, for the advocacy. Okay, so this is why I say I am ADOS. I don't go around calling myself ADOS, but I fit that inclusion statement. I'm a United States citizen. I'm a citizen of the United States of America, and I descend directly from a victim of the institution of slavery, whether it's colonial or United States of America, because slavery started when it was just colonies at first. Jim Crow, black codes, sharecropping, peonage, everything that leads up, and basically the time frame we're dealing with is from 1619 all the way up to 1952. Okay, these are things that people don't discuss too much, the details of all this stuff. So that's what an ADOS is. And then, and I'm also a supporter of the advocacy movement. All right. So I just want to make sure that that's understood. And me saying that, I forgot whatever my other point was. So, I'll just kind of open it back up. But, this is what I want to say. When the movement took fire in recent times, it was first tried to first sabotaged by it being called Russian bots. People were accusing ADOS of being Russian bots, and it was done by Joyce Reed as one of the people. Okay, we got the clips for that. All right, so that was the first thing, and that's what really kind of brought attention to it. So it's like negative publicity was actually a good thing in a sense. Then it's also, some people are calling it a scam. Okay, so you got people calling it a scam. People are saying that the ADOS movement is a ploy to get attention and to gain followers for Yvette and Antonio. People are being very pessimistic and saying it's a pipe dream. It will never work. So why are you doing it? And then people are, doing the insult, or I should say ad hominem fallacies and stuff, speaking about Yvette, saying that the movement is ran by a lesbian, as if that disqualifies it from ever being able to be supported and things like that. And now recently, N'Cobra has come out. Well, I won't say N'Cobra, the representative for N'Cobra. So, yeah, and matter of fact, you can see the Twitter account and the whole nine. So I have to say N'Cobra. So now N'Cobra is on the attack, attacking the movement, because the movement has now gained so much momentum that it's directly because of the efforts of Breaking Brown crew of people and Tone Talk's crew of people merging to form ADOS advocacy. That is the reason why reparations is falling off the lips and tongues of all of these candidates and in mainstream now, not because of what N'Cobra has done for all this time. Now, N'Cobra has done some work, so you can't discredit whatever somebody has done. But the problem is that this recent surge is not because of that, but they're coming in on board now. And they've recently just now created a Twitter account. That means N'Cobra has recently just now plugged into the social media stream. Before then, they just had a website. They got two, actually. But as far as the real-time, fast-paced social media that everybody's been plugged into, N'Cobra is just now plugging into that. So it's weird that, and when I say just now, I'm talking about days ago. Okay. for them to do that now and then imply and take credit for this recent surge for Minister Thompson to avoid just saying straight out, answering George Reed's question of why is there a surge right now? You know, it's not in his best interest to be completely honest and say, well, you have these two people, you have Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore, you know, they're leading the charge, or, you know, it's through their brain trust that they started this social media platforms and movement, and it's caused a stir. It's causing people to talk about it again. See, he can't be honest and say that. He has to answer it in the negative. He talks about it, but in the negative, saying it's a cyber COINTELPRO movement and so on and so forth. So anyway, I'll just want to say that, and I don't want to hog the mic, so we could pass it around or whatever the case is. If anybody got any thoughts on some other things that you were saying, 42. No.
What about Kadeem Stewart? He in there?
I'm sorry. Say it again.
I see Kadeem was in there. I was seeing who else I want to get into. I saw Kadeem Stewart. I don't know if he was still on or not.
All right. Okay. Kadeem, if
yeah, he might be gone.
Be my guest. You know, if you got some thoughts to share.
I wanted to do a quick plug and say that video with that Minister Thompson guy, that's on my channel, and Tariq breaks that down, and it's hilarious because the guy really wasn't saying anything. Mm-hmm. It was just, and that's the problem. How are you going to be a reparations advocate and you're on television and you're not making a strong case for it? Instead, you're basically throwing shade at the people who are bringing it up. You know what I mean? Like at ADOS, you're throwing shade at another group. You're not advocating for reparations. And the same dude, I noticed that he was doing the Wakanda salute with Maxine Waters. Mm-hmm. Now, I wouldn't have a problem with that. That's great. If you're close to Maxine Waters, the problem I have is Maxine Waters she's not one of the, at least in the last 2 years that we can check, she didn't co-sponsor HR 40. So if you're really a political advocate, you're trying to get her out of office for reparations. Mm-hmm. You're surgical like that. You're not doing the Wakanda salute unless you're trying to double agent it. And I see no example of that. I mean, I'm curious what went wrong with Cobra, because right now they're incompetent. And I'd be willing to extend the olive branch because we're in a different age after Obama, because Obama, he didn't do a lot specific for Black people. Some people can break it down better than me and make an argument that he did some things, but he didn't do a lot specifically. And there was no upward movement in wealth. So we're a more jaded group. It's easier to have even with Trump in office, no reparations, no vote. So I could kind of, okay, there's people who say that they came into the reparations, I guess I would say school, because you kind of have to learn the arguments and the debates and everything, but they came into it through Cobra. And I'm like, I had never even heard of them. So at one point, they were getting people, they were doing something, and now it's like they've completely died down to the point where the guy's on TV and he's not saying he's not really advocating for reparations, which is crazy to me. Well, a little bit humorous, but let me say one thing, and I'm because I have a kind of a question.
Okay.
Do you remember the point where they said enslaved at the same time, where he was talking about, he wanted to make sure that he was talking about ADOS. So he said, you can tell, and I forget the exact wording, that there's something nefarious, alluding back to what he had said earlier. When they have that slave in their title, slaves, because nowadays he just made up some mumbo jumbo. We want to refer to ourselves as enslaved.
Right. Yeah. I remember.
Now you remember that, and the thing I'm wondering is, if you listen to it, Joy Reid said enslaved at the same time.
Yeah.
So, and here's the thing: she's an immigrant from Africa. She's from the Congo. So why is she somebody who I've never really heard make any type of case for reparations, why is she in harmony with the difference between slaves and enslaved? Like, that actually is going to make any type of difference when it comes to pushing anything through the political system.
Right.
And I'm thinking it's because it was scripted.
Well, see, this is the thing. And while I talk, I just want everybody to know that I'm sharing Yvette Carnell's channel so that people could just know what to search for, and make sure you check out her videos. And I want to say this because Yvette's last show, which is the most recent show you see where my cursor is, it was 22 hours ago, which was yesterday. She addressed this stuff, and she kind of systematically walked through it. You know, she showed the brother Minister Thompson doing interviews with congressmen, but not bringing up reparations. He was actually co-signing on some other stuff, and here it is. If you represent in Cobra and you're all about reparations, about it, then and it's not so much of that alone, but he has access. See, and this is one of the criticisms that ADOS has for these so-called mouthpieces that's in media, such as Roland Martin, such as Joyce Reed, and all these other folks, is because they're in these positions and they have access to these people, but they're not doing anything. They're not doing what they should be doing. And so her show was vanity politics or substantive politics versus substantive politics versus vanity politics, symbolic politics versus actual politics, actual doing politics. And so she made that comparison and contrast where people are just doing politics, performative politics, as she calls it too. They're just performing. They're not actually doing anything. They're not actually putting the fire to these folks that they have access to. And so she used that brother as an example where he was interviewing people, not only just interviewing people having access to people, but people who are not supportive of, for example, HR 40, who should be, because they claim to represent, our interests as African Americans in this country. Matter of fact, Yvette even criticized John Lewis, who is a veteran civil rights leader and peer of Dr. Martin Luther King and the whole nine. He rides off of that. She criticized him last night. The fact that why isn't he the sponsor for this bill and not Sheila Jackson Lee? And so, she talked about all that good stuff. So anyway, I'm showing this to let people know that, check her videos out and hear it straight from her mouth. And then you draw your conclusions and stuff. And I'm going to tell you that she's a warrior. So she shoots it straight. So you can't be all, soft and I don't know how to put it. You can't be soft and emotional when you're listening. And this type of fight needs that energy. Needs that energy, that no nonsense. That's the word I'm looking for. She has a no nonsense with everything, period. But anyway, but yeah, so to what you were saying, I found that interesting too, because as I was listening, it was weird because he made a point to emphasize that, but then when the mic went back to Joy Reid and she was talking, she kind of did the opposite of what he was saying a little bit too. Because he pointed out that, okay, identifying with slaves, we're enslaved Africans and this disconnect from Africa and stuff. And that's that whole divisive character that was put on ADOS by the opposition, which is strange. Like people gotta peep how this thing has been unfolding. You can't just jump in and then think you got it all figured out. You gotta slow it down and look at how this stuff all unfolded and everything. So maybe we could talk about why people feel that there's a disconnect with Africa, why people feel that ADOS is against Caribbean, people from the Caribbeans and so on and so forth. I don't know if somebody want to bring that up, but
I know they feel that way because like if you listen to her speak, like you said, she a straight pit bull, and I like it. You know what I'm saying? Like she ain't like she coming hard with it, and And like I don't even understand the Cobra thing. Cause she pulled up some of their YouTube videos and like, dude had like 22 views. I mean, I'm talking about like they had no online
Presence.
interaction at all. I was like, are you serious? Crazy.
Right, no
shocked.
presence. Like yeah, and see that's what I'm saying. She pulled up because you got to remember Antonio and Yvette are used to dealing with numbers and stats and data. So she pulled up their Twitter account and showed that they just joined a few days ago in March. She pulled up their YouTube channel, this brother's YouTube channel, and showed the number of subscribers, the number of average views that he gets and stuff to support her point that they don't have that online presence on social media. Now, you know, back in the day, 1987, when Cobra got started, they have chapters and you got to join, and it's a network of you know, chapters within it and stuff. So they are organized, and they've been organized since 1987. But then what though? Like you see what it was done, but it's like, okay, now let's do more. So it's like if like jump on board. And so that was the point. And another thing she pointed out was interesting was she pointed out on their website that one of their pledges is to always appear to be in solidarity in the public with any organization or individuals that are fighting for reparations. She read that. You remember that 42? I don't know if you saw her show. Did you?
I watched some of it live. I missed that.
Okay, yeah.
That right there is revealing because I mean, but I'm not surprised because listening to that guy, it sounded like if Cobra was ever effective at anything, it was completely, we call it decapitated. Like it's right now, it's just a front. Like imagine someone watching that who was familiar with arguments that you make when you're passionate, you know, like let's say you're arguing for reparations for Native Americans or Hawaiians is a better example, people that have been reduced from like hundreds of thousands to 5,000. Imagine that. You're used to that. And then you're listening to this guy. It's just completely missing. I would consider the whole episode to be a human rights violation. It's worse than voter suppression to me, because voter suppression, it's a crime. People will bust you for it. Trying to undermine a political movement, how long, you know, she could probably do this for another 3 years. You know, this is kind of how things work. But I think it might be beneficial to take a stand against it, if for no other reason, to see if she'll apologize like she did to homosexuals.
Yeah.
Or if she's, you know, gonna keep doing it.
Yeah, that's with Joy Reid. So yeah, that is something. And see, this is the thing that we have to understand, is that all of this fussing that you see us doing in-house, because one thing I posted, and I wanted to see what people's reaction was. I posted, I said, quote unquote, white people don't fight against ADOS on the level that quote unquote blacks are fighting against it. And I did that on purpose to show that all the stuff that we're seeing on social media is, you know, from a racial social thing, is black on black. It's like you know, they're watching. It's like, okay, we ain't got to address this because they fighting each other. They can't even get it together. And it's crazy because we got to understand that we can throw our weight around, because there's about approximately 45 million, you know, numbers are different, like 40 to 45 million, quote unquote, blacks in America. Out of that, about 35 to 38 million are actually ADOS. And so if we get all on board on this, on advocating reparative justice for the institutions of slavery and ... then we can throw our weight around. And see, another thing that she pointed out, and this was really, really crucial, and this is something I think that needs to be underlined and people need to really understand, because people are asking, well, why are you criticizing the Democrats and you're not going to Trump, or you're not going to the Republican Party? Well, Yvette broke it down and said that you are criticizing, number one, the Republicans function as though they do not need our vote. That's how they function. That's how they've been functioning as a party for decades. We have historically recently in recent history, we have historically voted Democrat. Period. Everyone knows that. Black, when you say black and you think politics, you think Democrat, the Democratic Party. And so the Democratic Party, we have invested our votes into that party. So politics is about, and voting is about an exchange. You give your vote in exchange for legislation, for policies and programs that you have an interest in. And so the criticism on the Democrats is because they're supposed to represent, and we've been throwing them our votes. So now it's time for them to make good on the exchange. And this is something that she has explained. But I'm saying all this to say is because when we can come together, we throw our weight around, then we can get things done. And this speaks to the pessimist people who say, "Oh, y'all know it's never gonna work, it's never gonna do this," and stuff.
Yeah, hey, Zal, I have a question on that.
Yeah.
Like, for the people who say that they're not just gonna give us anything, it's not really about them just giving us anything. It's a address to what they have to be focused on. And I'm like, what do you think about them just saying that versus just we still advocating to legislate?
Well, it's a couple of things. When people say that, it's coming from a place of ignorance, as I always say, and the ignorance being that of the legal process. Because like we're so used. Okay, let's start over. The majority of Black America has had a apolitical stance. Period. Like we have given up on politics, hands down. Like we come up with, like, we even say things like the president is pre-selected at birth. They put whoever they want in office. We'll say things like that, and I'm sure all of y'all have heard that before in our communities where we have this subconscious idea that politics don't matter. I think somebody got some noise back there. Mute. Okay. Yeah, we have this.
We're more into conspiracy than politics.
Huh? Say it again.
So we're more into conspiracy than actual politics.
Yeah. So our folks, Black America, we've had an apolitical stance on politics. We've had this hands off. We've become a non-participant group of people in politics, which is crazy when you think about it, because we don't know enough to understand that politics is the macro level of control over society and communities. And by us being non-participants in it, it's analogous to giving somebody your car keys and then you just jumping in the trunk and letting them drive you around wherever they want to go. And that's what we've been doing for so long. So that's the place where this pessimism comes from. Also, that's one place where it comes from. Then it just comes from ignorance of the politics itself, like I said, and law. Because we look at like police brutality, we're looking at these police officers getting off, and we saying justice has not been served in a lot of these incidences over the years and stuff like that, not understanding that the way law works, you got three branches of government. You got the executive branch, legislative branch, and judicial branch. Most of us are used to only understanding the judicial branch, where they judge and enforce the law. But we don't really understand the law-making body of government. So if people are getting off and there's loopholes in the law where the judicial branch is people are playing with that, or whatever, then we got to get into the legislative branch to actually tighten up these laws, to amend these laws, to create new laws, create new legislation to make sure these things don't happen. But we're not going to do that if we don't participate. So not only participate and demand representation, but become the lawmakers. You know what I'm saying? And so all of this has a part to do it, and we can't do it overnight. So what ADOS as a movement does, this is why I love it so much, or like it so much, is because it's causing a paradigm shift. It's waking people up. It's a continuation of when Obama was running. I think when Obama ran for presidency, that's probably the most recent political activity that you've seen from Black America. And so to continue that, ADOS is bringing more fine tuning and details to that political awareness, that we need to become politically political participants. We need to understand numbers. We need to understand demographics. We need to understand representation, and we need to understand interest groups and voting blocks, all this kinds of things. And so that's why I say, so when people say, oh, we're not going to get anything, they don't understand that there's ways to force the issue. There's ways to force it to the point where it becomes a line where they have to do it. Like people look at the UN, for example. The UN already did research and already gave recommendations that the United States government should give reparative justice to for slavery. But people don't understand that UN recommendation is not binding. It's not legally binding. The United States doesn't have to do anything. So that's not going to do it. But people bring it up as if that was something, as if that was legally binding, and they cite that to say, see, the United States don't have to do nothing. The United States ain't gonna do nothing. You gotta have a standing army to make them do this, that, and the third. But they don't even understand that even the example they bring up legally is not even binding. So in order for their statement to have some weight, you got to show me where something is legally binding and then they refuse to do it.
Okay, so I got another question, and this was like just up in the air. Mm-hmm. So is advocacy the same method as quote unquote boots on the ground?
Yeah, advocacy in general is like a push, a zealous push of something. You're advocating. You're bringing attention to something. You're pushing it. You're pushing the issue. You're nagging, like that whole thing, like nagging. I'm advocating something.
Yeah, you can't get boots on the ground if you're not advocating.
Yeah, so they kind of go hand in hand. So but let me say this though, because the climate has completely changed. Because remember, the internet didn't even come out till like what, 1991, 92, and stuff like that. And even when the internet first came out, we were dealing with dial up, like 400 baud modems and
95 and 98 is when it really.
Yeah.
You said what now? You said what?
From 95 to 98 is when it really picked up speed.
Okay.
Yeah, we actually got to the homes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, for the homes, and then even way after that for broadband. But my point for bringing that up is because a lot of these organizations that claim tenure, they started before the advent of social media, and so their paradigm and their platform is based on quote unquote boots on the ground. So now we're in this era of time where marching has a different value now, because you can do something online that is proportionally as effective as a march, whereas we never had that option back in the 80s or the early 90s when a lot of these other organizations started and so on and so forth. So they've built their foundation off of something that has now changed. And so this is why this movement is so important, because it is real time and it's dealing with what we can deal with now. You know what I'm saying? So the whole boots on the ground type of talk is good, but now we can extend it, because now we can advocate through social media. We can advocate through other means that we didn't have access to before. You know what I'm saying? So like you can galvanize a lot more people online than physically, because imagine this. Imagine how much it will cost to do a march, like in mass numbers. It would be very impressive, but it would be costly because people had to travel to get to the location of the march. You have to, everybody has to make sure they have, all the provisions, water, whatever. When you can galvanize the same amount of people on social media for a whole lot less, and then strategize and make decisions to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm just speaking on
okay. So when people say, like on YouTube, they saying about Yvette Carnell trying to just gain a following, it's like, of course. That's no hashtag ADOS.
Yeah, that's the whole point.
Yeah, that's, to me, I found that to be crazy too, because you're accusing you're being accusatory of something that should be what she's doing. it's
the thing that confuses me the most is, like, you hear people say things like, they always throw the white man for the spook. They always try to scare you with, the white man ain't finna let y'all get nothing. You think the white man? And I'm thinking, like, if you know history, like about the Jim Crow laws, like why are we not still in Jim Crow laws? Why were slaves taking their masters to court during slavery? It's like they see all the progress that was done through the system. Like, you live in a system. The system's a machine. You got to fight to tweak the machine to your comfort level. Like when you get your computer, you gotta, if you want it to run like you want it to run, you gotta put software in it. You gotta take time to tweak it to your liking. If you don't tweak it to your liking, you're gonna be forced to deal with it however other people make it up for you. You know what I'm saying? So when I hear people say that, it just really it's like, I think it's more of a scare tactic, because when they have nothing else to say, they'll fall back to, well, the white man ain't gonna give it to you anyway, so it's a waste of time.
Right.
And that's the part, the most frustrating part.
Yeah, I think part of it is we're engineered to have that mindset and not look for cracks in the system, because I look at it like, I've seen examples of how people exploit it. And if we can't do that, then the alternative, people will talk about going to Africa and building. I don't think you're competent enough to do that. If you can't finesse America out of some trillions, I don't see how you can do anything else, because this is the easier part. And it's not just that. I put 2 links in the chat. I put 3. The first one is the one with the 2020, disregard that. The other one is the Free Beacon one and the Collective Pact. That's why I say this is not something that's unrealistic, because the Free Beacon talks about how the major donors for the Democratic Party got together and had a short list of a short agenda, like an agenda with a short list. And on that list was reparations. And I'm like, well, how did we get that? Who did that? Because, people say white folks ain't going to give it to you. Well, how did they do it? And I looked and I see that there was part of the alliance of these donors was the Collective Political Action Committee. I know nothing about them. But if you look at their website, it's Building Black Political Power. So they got that coming from the major money is on the side of reparations. What's lacking is that no reparations, no vote, like a real hard political push coming from people, doing different things, but mainly getting in the habit of voting surgically. One agenda. That's what I mean. Like, power is going to come from executing a handful of power moves. Big power moves. It's not going to come from a little pow here and there. It's just way too many X factors. The type of money that it would take to really invigorate our economy, the overhead costs, is more expensive than buying a good portion of Congress. And you can just run the numbers and look at how much it costs to have them arguing, at least the Republicans, to have them arguing to arm school teachers. And like, there's no way you can sell that. It's a lot easier to sell reparations when you have 400 years of human rights violations than to send your kid to a school where the teachers have heat. So they're not being practical. And I think it's because they're engineered to the point where that's a good escape. Let's get out of the system. Most of my energy and my money is to getting out of the system. Like, I want to go do a movie in Africa. But I got to be realistic. What's going to work for my people as a major populace? It is if you can't finesse this, if you can't finesse America as much as you know America, as much as you control America's spirit, then you're in trouble doing something else.
And see, imagine this goes back to our supposed mouthpieces, because we have to look at the bigger picture. And this is something that ADOS is forcing people to see the bigger picture and to frame it correctly. Like you know, this is what people need to start appreciating about what's being advocated, is because you have people in these media positions who we're used to seeing on these news outlets and whatnot, and they have access to interview this person, that person, whatever, but they're not asking the tough questions. Like for example, Bernie Sanders, when he did that town hall town hall meeting, and one of the sisters jumped up. It was towards the end, I think, and she asked specifically about reparations specifically for African Americans, or whatever the case is. And you know, that got some buzz because he danced around the question and whatnot. But now imagine if somebody like her or one or more of her pop up in every single place that these candidates show up in. And not only that, these news mouthpieces, whenever they have people as guests, whether they're congressmen or somebody running for something, or just period, any political person, putting forth that same question. And so this is the fire that ADOS is putting out there. They're criticizing our folks because, see, these people are supposed to represent us. Like, because I did this myself. I did a poll. I just asked the general question. I said, does everybody? I said, do you agree that reparations is due? No, I said, do you agree that, you know, African Americans or something is due reparations for the institution of slavery? And everybody agrees to that. So it's like, okay, well, if everybody agrees, now how can that be actionable? How does that supposed to look like now? You know, and so this is what ADOS, the movement, is doing. It's actually transforming the feel good talk and the talk, all the talk is actually starting to make it into a momentum, a movement. This is why it's called a political advocacy movement, because it's actually putting the fire to force people to actually visibly see your words now. So if we all are for reparative justice now, then why aren't we using all fronts to confront the issue, to make it happen? And that's the criticism that ADOS is giving to the Democrats, is giving to all these news folks and everybody else. It's like, listen, everybody can get it, because we're tired of it. And it's about timing, because the climate is ripe right now. The season is right now. You know, we're going to go into 2020 elections. It's on the mouthpiece of everybody, and people are dissatisfied with, you know, the country's representation through the Trump administration and whatnot, or whatever the case is. So it's like, now the timing is right. So it's
and for the first time too, it's like you see those politicians, like when it comes to that topic, like they stepping like they going over landmines, because they know, like, if you don't come across right, there's no more like we just ride with you now. Mm-hmm. Like we want something specific. If you're not willing to address what we need specifically, we ain't rocking with you. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So like even when Bernie Sanders made that statement on the Breakfast Club, like he might have put his whole campaign in jeopardy by saying what he said. He tried to backtrack and come back with the whole, you know, minority thing, but he might have shot himself in the foot.
Well, look at this. Look at Elizabeth Warren, her most recent newsworthy headliner, and you gotta kind of look at her audience. Her audience was, I think, a HBCU situation. So she full-heartedly said specifically that she supports the full-blown conversation about reparative justice for slavery, and the bill. She actually mentioned the bill itself. It's talking about HR 40 and so on and so forth. But she's on the Senate side, so she's not going to be a co-sponsor, or her name is not going to be signed to it. But that's a step in the right direction to get them to start talking. Because remember, just like when the police pull you over and you get accused of something, you get arrested. What do they read you? Your Miranda rights. What do they say? They say you have a right to remain silent. What you say can and will be used against you. So we got to get these people to start saying things and then hold them to it. And that's what the cry is for these news reporters. Like, hold these folks to it. Like do your research. Like if Elizabeth Warren is coming on my show and I'm one of those folks, I'm going to know that she said that, and I'm going to ask her about it. Like, what are you doing about it? Like, how many, what are your constituents saying about that? What are you doing? I would ask, probe it. But they let him off the hook, and that's what they were saying about this Minister Thompson guy. When he does interviews, he's supposed to represent in COBRA and reparations and all this, that, and the third. But you look at the work that's put out by him or whatnot, it's not, it doesn't reflect that. It doesn't reflect that at all. It doesn't reflect that kind of energy. It's just you taking pictures with people, I don't know which one of y'all brought up. They was doing the Wakanda thing with Maxine Waters or whatever the case is.
Angela Rye and all that stuff.
And everything. So it's to feel good. It's almost become a way to escape doing something. So this is fresh, and people need to embrace it. Like, this ADOS movement is not going anywhere anytime soon. Like, people saying, I give it 3 months, I give it 6 months. Nah, man, they haven't been paying attention. And
it's like, it's like now, it's like you can see now when they're like setting black people up for you. You can see them building them up, like, okay, like they're building them up to be the next black person to, you know what I'm saying? Because they'll start making their rounds, CNN, you know what I'm saying? NBC, they'll start seeing them a lot, like Angela Rye. All of a sudden, she started popping up a lot, a crucial point. And, you see like these people are being backed. And it's like with Yvette and Antonio, that's the reason about what them doing organically. It's like, they're not beholden to anybody. You know what I'm saying?
That's important.
Just like with them doing this show, they don't have to worry about who they upset because this person that's sponsoring them is in bed with this person, so they can't say that. But you know what I'm saying? So they're free to just go at whoever.
Yeah, and that's important. Listen, that's a very important point, and that's a point that both Antonio and Yvette mentioned. The fact that they are uncompromised, they don't receive no funding, because she was accused. They were accused of because people say, let's see who they funded. And people saying that ADOS is a front for the LGBT movement and a front for this and front for that. So they addressed it. They were like, listen, we're not in bed with nobody. We're uncompromised. That's why they could talk about X, Y, and Z. They can give honest and piercing criticism to any and everybody, because they don't have any, like, you know how if you're a good buddy, you hire your good buddy, you got a business and you hire one of your good friends and stuff like that. You tend to do things based on the friendship instead of business. And so to prevent that, you just make sure you don't have that set up. And so that's what ADOS represents. It has no ties. It's like, listen, we know better now. We were bamboozled all this time, but now we know better. We know that politics is an exchange. So to get our vote, we want something. How about it? Without you giving us what we want, guess what? You don't get our vote. And then people even misconstrue that. They're like, okay, well, what if none of the Democrats support it? Is everybody who's ADOS just not going to vote, or they're going to start voting for Trump and voting for this and voting for that? And
yeah, I've seen. Yeah, I hear people starting that. One of our buddies started this whole campaign too.
Right.
I think what you will see next too is they're going to try and hijack it.
Oh, they just started. They started
the political side. You know what I mean, and just curve it. You know what I'm saying? Like, cause I don't think they would ever want to go through Antonio and an event because that would signify like they lost or they gave in. It's kind of like how they did Colin Kaepernick when the NFL gave the money. They didn't do it to Colin Kaepernick; they did it to somebody else. And I think you'll see you'll see them try to hijack it and try to sway it off the road a little bit, and you know what I'm saying, try to throw somebody else up. Like I think we got to watch for that fake person to come across screaming reparations the hardest, and he's extremely popular and
no,
and
listen.
all the media circles. You know what I'm saying?
Listen, that's another point you raised. That's excellent because it's happened. That's what we were just talking about. That was the whole I am Joy Reid situation with the brother Minister Thompson. That was the setup. That was the plug. Because remember, look. I have you seen it? Have you saw the interview?
I saw what I didn't see the interview from Joy Reid. I saw clips on the vet show.
Okay, go watch the whole interview, and it's gonna hit bullseye on what you're saying because the brother was downplaying ADOS and propping up in Cobra. He was basically saying, come to us, come to the legitimate front for reparations, which is us in Cobra. And he named two. It was two organizations. He said, we are the legitimate ones. And see, so it's already happening. What you just said is already happening. And that's why Yvette was right on top of it on the same day. And she did the show last night. And it's and see, they're active on Twitter. Back and forth, like with she calls them blue checks. These are
I see that.
These are politicians. These are people. They're engaging. Like they tweet like, you know, I'm a follower of them on Twitter, and I get notifications. And man, they tweet in the middle of the night and everything. So they on it, and they raising these hard questions. They pushing the points and stuff like that. So, but you're right. It's already being done, and so they firing back. They're like, nah. We not the same. We not gonna roll over. Nah, you know.
Yeah.
And she said, listen, we're not gonna join you. She just said it straight out. She said it straight out.
Yeah.
She said straight out. She said because basically she was saying that prior to that, it was all good. It was all good. You know, hey, we could work together with that. But after that, she's like, nah, the gloves are off. She's like, nah, I'm not gonna play with our people's future and this restorative justice claim. Allow you to play with that. So she's like, nah. She said it's a wrap. She said it's a wrap for that. So, and that's how it is. And people got to understand. See, she's a woman, and people can't kind of deal with that, and so they picking on her for this lesbian claim and stuff, and all that, to derail what is actually taking place. Yeah, what's actually taking place. You know?
One thing I wanted to say about that is maybe it's just me, but I've get the picture that she thinks like a grown man and a grown woman, but she's dealing with teenagers. Because I think the people that are going after ADOS, at least the Joy Reid crowd, it's DNC people. Like it's like Malcolm Nance. Did either of you hear what Malcolm Nance said about ADOS? The ex-CIA Malcolm Nance?
Nah.
I mean, he was on Stephanie Miller. And the only reason why I know her is because I used to listen to Air America. And he was on Stephanie Miller's show. And he said that ADOS was created by about 5 real people who, and he said he compared them to the new Black Panthers, and he said that he mentioned how that they were that a whole bunch of bots just sprung out. So we're talking about an ex-CIA member, and what's funny is he's a really bad liar because you know how when people want to sound smart or sophisticated, they start speaking in a British accent, sort of.
Right.
That's what he was doing. So, I mean, anybody listening to it was like, this guy's bullshit. But because there's no reason to actually question them, you probably wouldn't get to that point. But if the moment somebody'd say, listen to this guy lie, it's obvious. He's not a good liar. I see why we're not, and this is a good thing. Why one of the reasons I'm optimistic is we're dealing with a bunch of bumbling idiots. Like the people that are coming at ADOS, they don't have, like, if they really wanted to promote somebody, they would have paid somebody off some big money who had a social media following. And they would have done this 5 years ago. They're hit flat-footed. They're not paying attention. They don't know the language of power. They don't think analytically. And that's why, like, I could give a damn about anybody's sexuality when I see that they're thinking in a complex way. Like, when I see this type of duality of thinking, I'm like, if that's what it takes, I'm trying to win any means necessary.
Yeah, exactly.
And
it's stereotics.
And that's the thing. Like, when people say, how can you be Pan-African and ADOS? Pan-Africanism is my fuel to think critically, to win. It's that simple. Like, a lot of this with reparations, I was playing the game Democracy 3, and I was thinking, boy, you know what? I want to see how reparations would work in this. It's a game that simulates being the president of different countries too, not just America. And one thing I noticed looking at their budget, if you were to pay $3 trillion over 30 years, it wouldn't even touch the budget. You wouldn't see it. It would be like a miscellaneous item on a big pie chart. It wouldn't even have its own slice of the pie. And that's the type of thing that you can't sell that to the public. We don't even want a slice. We just want a bite out of America, of the American pie. And it would be $3 trillion. I think we should go for a little bit more, but $3 trillion would make a big difference. That's a lot of resources. And then you get, and this is what I talk about, people being teenage minded. You have people who will shoot back, well, it's paper. Like, the dollar hasn't been worth anything before, or they haven't ran the numbers and they think the $3 trillion is going to crash the value of the dollar when it's not even, you don't even see it on the budget. And like, I compared this game to our real budget. And if anything, it was more accurate than to the real budget, because it inflated things slightly, how you would see in about 30 years when this would go down. So it's doable. Like, this really, it's not that much for America. America's that powerful. America could pay reparations as it has to other people without breaking a sweat. So to me, it's like, even if you're right, and this isn't going to work, if you're not trying it, you're not thinking critically, and you're not trying to make a strong power move, nobody's going to take you seriously with anything else.
Yeah, and I also see that you'll get that, some of our folk with that white supremacist type of thinking, and they'll even say things like, well, even if you get the money, you ain't gonna do nothing with it but blow it. And I'm like, what? You know what I'm saying? Like
that's
like, why would you say something like that? Like, you know what I mean? But
right, and that's irrelevant.
That's part of that sickness. That's part of that reparation part we need. That you know what I mean? We need, like, some people just ain't mentally right yet. You know what I'm saying? And it's important that we get that type of, man, like we need to be able to see a psychiatrist, man. Like, most Black people in their lifetime don't even know people who actually had the money to even see a psychiatrist and talk some of these emotional issues out that you can visibly see Black folks suffering with on Facebook. You can see it in real time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So let me just say this, for those who are tuned in, one, I appreciate anybody who's tuned in, to hang out. It's late. I know it's a weekday, so, appreciate. I know we got different time zones going on. And now in the future with these discussions, what I'm going to try to start doing is to share some actual data. Like, I'm not really sharing much. We're just having a conversation. We kicking it right now. So if anybody has some questions or concerns or, comments, I'm put the link inside of the chat, so you come in and have your voice heard, or type in your question on the chat and whatnot. But what I want to kind of shift to discussion to is, now the last time I had a discussion, I was on the the Amara Squad media channel, and we had a discussion about a few things, but our last half of our show was about ADOS. And I ended the show with a question. And I said, I asked everybody who was on the panel, I think it was like 8 to 10 of us on the panel. And I said, does everybody here agree that reparations is due? And then everybody said yes. And that's been the consensus of everybody, like everybody, period. I haven't seen not one person disagree with the fact that reparations should take place. So then I asked the question, I said, okay, from that agreement, if we all agree on there, so that's our starting block, where do you, once you step off that agreement block, where do you see the contention coming from? What is the first thing that you see? And so I went around the panel and everybody gave their idea of what the start of some problems that they experienced or something that they feel themselves. And so I wanted to, so I was going to do that for this show, but I think I need to plan for that. I wanted to kind of pick up from there and then address what everybody said. And so one of the things, this I'm showing on the screen right now, this is one of the things that one of the person said, the fact that ADOS has an appearance of being divisive. You know, so I'm sharing my sister, Dr. Maat's, this is her Facebook post she put up earlier today. And she says, ADOS is not divisive, not a divisive movement. It is about a people who have a specific lineage, history, and claim. And man, I'm telling you, if you all are friends with her, go to this post and just look at all the comments that are below this. And it's too many for us to go through right now. But so I want to kind of put this on the floor without going through those specific comments. But I just want to kind of see what you all are saying about this idea of divisiveness, because that is one of the excuses that are being used to not support ADOS. So what are your all's thoughts on that?
Well, most of the feedback I get on that, and I've come to learn, you know, especially as I talk to different people in the chat, are from non-ADOS people, and it's kind of them banding together. I guess feeling like they're being left out. You know, they kind of focus on a clip, and they kind of feel like they're being left out of argument, and they don't understand that they cannot. It's simple. It's no more simpler than you cannot be included in this claim legally. You know what I'm saying? And it's hard for them to really understand that part, you know. And like a lot of time I try to explain to them, it's like us saying we ADOS is kind of like a Jamaican saying he's Jamaican. You know what I'm saying? It's like we're standing on the fact that we're American. Like, we know we're African. You can look at us and tell we're African, but we're using our American status right now to get what we want. And because y'all don't have American status, y'all cannot be in the claim.
All right. Because what are they going to say when the new census come out to where they have to label that they come from another country? You can't put African American like everybody else now.
Yeah, that's true. So what you're talking about is the 2020 census. It actually separates race from ethnicity now, where you can actually write in your ethnicity or ethnic origin. So even if you check white people are gonna have to say, you know, Irish, you know, whatever, and all those good things that are in the 2020 census already now. And so, but yeah, so let me ask you this. So now this has been my experience, and you know, I deal with people's logic. You know, that's just my background. I don't even get to the surface irrelevant stuff, you know, that wastes time. I just hit it right there at the logic. So this is the thing. Like, for example, when we say African American, like somebody said, well, they have a problem with the name, you know, the ADOS. You know, they want to switch up from slavery. No, there's a lot of people out there that think the S stands for slaves, when you know it doesn't. It stands for slavery, speaking about the institution. But people, no matter how many times you say it, they still hear slaves, and so they have a problem with being identified as slaves, like with that word slave in there, you know. And that's one. And then two, even the A, the American part, they want it to be African, or the A stand for African somewhere in the title instead of American. And one of the points that they use to drive that one is to say that America could be Canada, it could be Central America, South America, and so on and so forth. So the logic of that, I push back on it. So I asked people, I said, well, if that's the case, then when we use the term African American, do you picture a black person in Brazil? And everybody say no. Like nobody, like a black person in Brazil, if I say African American, you're not going to think of a black Brazilian or a black person who is a national of Chile or Mexico.
Yeah, and they are the largest African American population outside of Africa.
Yeah, but you're not like when we I'm talking about regular
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah,
regular vernacular that we use in day-to-day conversation. When you hear African American, nobody is thinking of a black Mexican. Nobody's thinking of a black person living in Mexico. And so that just killed the logic of nitpicking at the word America. So what I was trying to tell people is that America, see, the acronym is what it is, but then it's all about how it's defined. Just like any legal document, just like any contract or whatever, you have a section for all the definitions. So you have the words themselves, but then you have how they define. And so the A is defined as a citizen of the United States of America, not a citizen of Canada or a citizen of Mexico or someplace in Central America or South America. It's very specific. A citizen of the United States of America. And the same thing, like for example, Kadeem, your name is Kadeem. How many other people have your name? Like it's probably a whole bunch of people that have the name.
Mostly Arabs.
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of people that have your name. But if I say Kadeem within the context of our conversation, everybody and their mother will know I'm talking to you or about you. Not no hundreds of other Kadeems around the world. So the idea of America they're trying to make the A in ADOS ambiguous when it's already specifically defined. And so people are going in reverse just to fight supporting ADOS. That's one of the things that's causing divisiveness. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because part of the divisive claim is the name. People are saying the name is causing a wedge in the communities, and then another major wedge people are citing is this ADOS versus black immigrants, when that wedge was in place all along. Because what did we always call ourselves before? I mean, and still do, African Americans. Most Jamaican. Now I don't know any Jamaican actually, or Haitian, or someone from Trinidad and Tobago that will say that they're African American. They say I'm Jamaican. They say I'm Trini. I'm Haitian, or I'm Haitian American. Like if they want to use the hyphenated form, they say I'm Haitian American, Jamaican American, or whatever the case is. Not African American.
The reason why I would say I'm African American is because I was born here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's supposed to be the whole point of it. But if they do see that Jamaican on the street, or if that Jamaican get that job, he will be put into the percentage as an African American who got the job. And then we come back like, well, he's black, but he's not African American, so that shouldn't go towards our stats. You know what I'm saying? And I think people, and that's what a lot of people are missing the whole point. Sometimes they say, well, how are just 4 or 5 million people taking up all the jobs? I said, it's deeper than just the job. I said that they're misconstruing the stats because we're all being labeled as the same thing.
Black.
So when they're successful, they go, well, what are you complaining about? Look how many of y'all got. It's like, no, they're not all African Americans. All of them aren't us. But y'all label them as us, and y'all neglecting what we need to get, because y'all putting us all in the same box.
And so That's my point. My point is that the distinctions have always existed. So it's really weird to me that when we actually see it's not really the distinction that's the problem. It's really goes back to the acronym. Because as long as we if that acronym was never created and everybody just stuck to African American, let's say it was just hashtag African American, hashtag African American.
Yeah, we'd still be confused.
Yeah, we was, but it would be other stuff. Like nobody would be complaining about divisiveness and stuff because the distinctions were always there. There was always a distinction between an African American and somebody who recently immigrated over here, with the knowledge that all of us are considered black. Like if somebody from Jamaica was to come over from Jamaica tomorrow, they would be called black, but beneath that level, a distinction we made. Like, okay, you're African American, but he's Jamaican. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But on the level above that, both people would be called black. But that's always existed. And so this is not something new. So people are making it out to be something it's not, only because of their personal feelings about the acronym. People don't like the word slave or slavery or anything with SLAVE.
Yeah, I'm about to say on the acronym with slaves, they're trying to refer that to as Slavic. I heard that before. Somebody said that before.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this has nothing to do with Indo-European.
Yeah.
Part of it is people just want bicker.
Say it again.
What's wrong with slaves?
I mean, it's
what's wrong with slaves?
Because they'll make the argument that, you know, we didn't start, you know what I'm saying? Our life didn't begin as slaves. Like, bro, we know that, man. You know what I'm saying? But that's just that's what they bring.
But the reality is that you're slave.
Hold up, say it again, because I don't want to cut off. Say it again.
I'm talking about the reality of it all is that slavery ties you back into Africa. It's not the same way when people say, we all know that you came from the word slave come from Slavic. But in reality of today, people, when you say slave, they automatically think Africa. That's just automatically when you come up to a white kid or my child is like 7 years old and I say slave, she's going to automatically think African.
Right.
So we got to get out. We got to get out of what we're ashamed that white folks have conned us and just got out of element so bad and beat us. That's what we can't come to grips with, is that we lost. You know, our people we got into chattel slavery. We lost, and we got to find our way. And that's what they're scared of, that name slavery. I don't know. I don't understand that. That's you just slapping your ancestors across the face when you say it. Just forget all about that. We just erase that out your memory. You just slapping your ancestors.
But now check this out. So there's some psychological issues that need to be addressed. Because like I said, see, this whole ADOS discussion, it's going to be an ongoing discussion, because there's a lot of things to kind of tease out of all this big discussion, because on a psychologically, right, the reason why people don't like the word slavery or slave is because of insecurity and this embarrassment, or this trauma. Yes. This trauma, insecurity, embarrassment, or whatever the case is. Because, like, for example, for anybody to say that our history starts before slavery, for them to jump out the gate and say that when the ADOS movement never makes a claim that our history starts as slavery in the first place, it's a straw man logical fallacy, number one, and then two, it's coming from a place of insecurity and that comfort zone, that feel good zone, to where you want to ignore the atrocities that took place and head it head on and actually use it to your advantage. Right. And see, and that's what the Jews have done. See, the Jews learned to completely embrace the tragedy that they have been advocating about the Jewish Holocaust and what Germany did and so on and so forth. They, to the point where they won't even allow you to forget about it. Like they make sure that they talk about it from A to Z, and they don't hide or run from it or none of that stuff. They let you know. Matter of fact, they not only that, they will take you even before World War II and Germany's situation. They'll take you all the way back to the biblical times and say they were slaves in Egypt.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So they have no problem talking about that and dealing with that, and they've learned to use it for leverage. And so
also Japan and Hiroshima.
Yeah. So but when it comes to us, we're scared to even use a reference to it, which is crazy. That's crazy. Like slavery is an institution, and people got to understand that this is a systemic issue, like a machine. And slavery was sanctioned and utilized as an institution in this country by the government to do whatever it did to build itself up. The United States is what it is today because of our ancestors, what our ancestors did. And even on the ancestor tip, everybody want to go back to Africa, right? Everybody want to identify with Africa and deal with some kind of African tradition and African spiritual religion and all this kind of stuff. And most of that is a focus on ancestral veneration, right? Ancestral veneration. People want to set up a shrine in their house. They want to do food offerings. They want to pour libation and do all this stuff for who? For the ancestors. But they're skipping over the ancestors that put sweat equity into this country to build this country up, and they're going all the way back to prior to the other ancestors and things like that. So it's like, okay, if we're gonna get into ancestral veneration, what is the most best way to honor your ancestors than to get justice for them?
Talk.
You know what I'm saying? Like what is the problem? Like our ancestors literally built this country. Like and not only built it, but built it under the most excruciating conditions. Loss of freedom, couldn't do, sexual selection, torture, getting beat, getting dismembered, having their language taken away, culture taken away. I mean, everything was thrown at our ancestors, and they still managed to build this country to the point where it is today. So what is the problem for us to fight for reparative justice? It's a justice. They need justice. And go ahead.
When I look back in history and I be seeing and I read about a person doing slavery, take somebody to court for their freedom, I'd be like, man, that's so gangster. Imagine what they had to be on to say, you know what? Man, I'm finna take you to court. I'm finna sue you for my freedom, and I'm finna get free. Can you imagine what everybody said to that person when they were trying to do that?
Oh, and
they was like, man, I'm finna make it happen. And then make it happen. I'm like, man, that's so gangster to me. And then we talk about doing it now. It's like so much criticism comes. It's crazy. And it's way easier to do it now than it was 200 years ago.
Oh man, check this out though. Check the flip. Check the flip in the logic, okay? Because people will say what ADOS is doing, the movement is doing, is begging massa for handouts. Right?
I was just about to say that, and that's one of the things we have to stop.
Welfare is a handout.
Hold
y'all covered so much, and I wanted to speak towards things, but I've just been patient to wait. But yeah, I was going to speak on. You have to stop calling it a handout. That conversation has to end immediately, because if you look at history, all the people who fought for what quote unquote rights we trying to identify ourselves with today all had these same pleas. This is where you get your declarations of rights of man, your declaration of independence. All these were declarations of demands wanted by oppressed people. If we lead up to today, the psychological effects of it, a lot of us don't even have to go back 100 years to see the same tribulations. How many brothers don't get occupation because of maybe they couldn't get a cab, maybe they couldn't get transportation, They go to a certain employer and they hear we don't have applications, but you're looking at a sign outside the building that says now hiring. And we know what it is. We know the systematic system that's in place. One of the things I wanted to speak on is with anything that I've wanted to study, I've always heard start from wherever the best have put forth work and build from there. While we having this conversation, you see things like ADOS is the new ABO. And this is just coming from
The new what?
a lot
Say it
of
again.
ego. The ADOS is the new ABO. In the constant just
Oh,
shift.
ABOs. I got
Yeah.
you. Go ahead. Mm.
And I don't agree with that at all. But I think a lot of that Aboriginal conversation stems from what the freedmen had to do in their ongoing fight to gain benefits from the tribes that withheld them in slavery. And I think we should look into what the freedmen did, because that opens up the doorway for a lot of benefits that we are actually asking for. And it's something to mirror, it's something to do a contrast comparison to. Because a big problem that we will have in this conversation that I don't really have, or I haven't seen it come up, we have to identify this isn't 1865. We're all not coming out of immediate slavery, which means some of us have grown economically and class wise. Some of us haven't. So our demands and our thought processes are going to be different on a collective whole. People at the top may want tax. People at the top might want tax breaks. People at the bottom may just want an opportunity to make it to the middle class. Majority of us don't even want the fancy lifestyle that America propagates. A lot of us don't want private jets. We say it, but at the end of the day, most of us would be happy to just go to Walmart and buy groceries for our kids and not have to sweat as we make those purchases. So, you know, there's a lot of ground to cover. And I think the big problem is something with y'all who promotes a lot. We have to slow down the conversation. And I think the biggest component is identifying what our true needs are going to be on a mass whole. What is it that we truly need that's going to benefit everybody, and start building on what it would take to get those things. Because at one minute we'll say, oh, reparations check ain't going to do it. Then the next minute is we need that check, we need that check. But we still need to think on a collective whole, what do we all need? I mean, we got handicapped brothers and sisters. We got single families. There's a lot of things that we need to address. I'm going to chime out and let the conversation keep building, but I'm in here now.
Okay, I wanna let me just say this real quick, because I wanted to finish. I want to make my point. I was saying make sure that you take note of the flip in the logic, because people are saying that the ADOS movement is begging for handouts from master, and so that's one of the talking points for the pessimism. They're like, oh man, white people control this, they control that, they're not going to get anything, it's not going to happen, it's a pipe dream, it's this, that, and the third. And so they're making that analogy to that, okay, we going to massa and we expecting a handout and everything. But they don't understand that it's actually flipped, where this movement is more so the rebellion, and the people who are pessimists are really the ones who are the docile assimilationists, because if you really think about it, because we are saying that, listen, we are multi-generationally native to this part of the world. Like me personally, for example, I was born here. I mean, I have children. I got 3 daughters. My 3 daughters were born here. I was born here. My mother and father were born here. My 4 grandparents, for both my parents, were all born here, and then their parents were born here. Like, I got all the documentation. So that's what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 generations of us here. And so if I'm going to be here, and I don't plan on migrating anywhere, when I just have my children here. I mean, I got children here too. So if we're going to be here for multiple generations, it is absolutely insane not to participate in the macro level of control for that of things that controls your life, which is politics and government. And so we have been apolitical as a people. We have been non-participant, and we've had the mental stance of an outsider. Like, we've been living in this country, but we've been living our lives as an outsider while being in here. And so what ADOS does, it flips it. It's the gangster. It's the rebellion. It's saying. Hold up, I'm getting this feedback. I have to mute your mic. So it's saying the opposite. It's like, look, since we're here and since we're not going anywhere, which is confirmed by the fact that we've been here through multiple generations. We can't fake like we're about to leave tomorrow. So since we're here and since we've been here, we better get involved. We better start being in the driver's seat as opposed to being in the trunk. And that's a paradigm shift that people are not able to handle. And you gotta remember, every time a society goes through a paradigm shift, there's always going to be confusion, chaos, and pushback. That's the nature of paradigm shifts, period. And we are experiencing that. That's it. We're experiencing that. And so people gotta, like you said, Vasal, we gotta slow the conversation down, go point for point, and reconcile these differences and point people to information. And then at some point, we have to have a tolerance line to where we just got to cut things off. Like, cause some people are just gonna become detrimental and harmful. And you know, you only as strong as your weakest link. And so at some point, we just gotta have cutoffs. Where, okay, man, if you want to argue about the acronym and not even realize that the acronym is only pursuant to this reparative justice claim because we got to deal with lineal descent. ADOS stands for American Descendants of Slavery, but it's broken down as citizens of the United States of America who are lineal descendants, not collateral descendants, lineal descendants of a person who was brought over here from the continent of Africa, who became a victim of institutionalized colonial slavery, United States of America slavery, black codes, Jim Crow, sharecropping, peonage, convict leasing. I mean, you know, they lay it out, and it spans a time frame from 1619 all the way to 1952. And if you fit that, you become in this class, and the legislation, the demand is to set up that class as a protective class. That's what people don't understand. We are setting up a protective class. And just to speak on that for real quick, you have the CBC, which stands for the Congressional Black Caucus. They are supposed to be the voice of Black America in Congress. The gist of it, okay? But yet, right now, they are talking and supporting about an amendment to the Civil Rights Act, which is being called the Equality Act, which is to include all these other groups to become a protective class, instead of advocating for reparations for ADOS, a specific class, which is what they supposed to represent in the first place, Congressional Black Caucus. You see what I'm saying? So our representatives have been bamboozled for the past 3 to 4 decades now. And now we are holding them accountable, and that's what ADOS is doing. And people are even complaining about that. They say, why you criticizing Democrats and not criticizing the Republicans? What name one Republican that supports HR 40? How come you don't go to Trump? Like, dude, like, why would you go to that when you're supposed to go to the people who are supposed to be batting for you? Like, that makes no sense.
Yeah, that's like leaving outside of your house for help to go knock on somebody else's door and ask them to help you.
Yeah, exactly. Who's supposed to be your family? Like if your family is supposed to represent you in a game, and you want your interests advanced in that game, you're not gonna go to somebody else. You're gonna go to the people who are supposed to be your representatives. That's what Democrats represent. You know, that's why we criticize the Democrats. And so people got to start seeing that. So like we got to slow this conversation way down. People got to get educated just on some basic things. you know.
And I don't think people
Yeah,
realize
'cause I
this
wanted to
is
ask. I really
just
wanted
one
to ask
foot.
something about
Oh, I'm sorry. One second.
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
It was.
legislative,
Hold
not
up.
but the party,
Hold on. One
about the
sec.
parties.
Wait. One second. Because there was two people talking at one time. I don't know who two, but I guess
Oh,
Kadeem,
it's
go.
42. I was just saying that
42.
people reduce Black Power to just the ADOS movement. And I may elaborate on that, but go ahead and come back to me on that. And the reason why I was bringing that
Okay,
up is it's more than that. There's more things that people can do if they have a problem with the acronym. But
Yeah,
go ahead.
and
I'll
that
come back to that.
and that speaks to what I say. We could walk and chew gum at the same time, but people trying to walk or chew gum, like people don't understand the word and. Like everybody got this or syndrome, like this or that. Like we could do multiple things. But anyway, go ahead, Kadeem.
Yeah, I wanted just to ask about the parties. Like, do we have to cast our vote to the Democrats, or if that doesn't seem to, cooperate, can we just go to the liberal, or would that be a bad strategy?
Okay, I'm gonna address that real quick.
Because I don't even know what the liberal party is.
Okay, let me just address that real quick, just in like kind of gist. See, the we have historically voted Democrats, and so there is equity, there is a leverage that we have because of our tenure in voting towards the Democratic Party. So we have a more stake. We have more of a stake in the Democrats than we do with the Republicans or any other party. So it's like it's in other words, the Democratic Party owes us. And so that's where our weight will be most effective. Now, but it does not limit what we do or not do. It's just the best of the options because of that leverage and because of what Democrats owe as a party at large. But at the same time, politics is all about an exchange. So it's about who is going to address your interests, your demands. When it comes down to it.
Because that it's part of the Democrat Party that the Emancipation Proclamation was made in the first place, right?
Well, and if you go back further enough, there was a flip. Historically there was a flip. There was, it was all about the Republican Party, and then it flipped, and so we're still on the flip side right now, and that's why everybody talks party politics, but it's deeper than that. It's really about like I said, the only thing we can really use that for right now is leverage and the fact that we have more stake in the Democratic Party, and the people that are in those seats, they're supposed to represent us. They are there because of the black vote. The Republicans have been operating pretty much like autonomously to the black vote for the most part. That's why we have a situation we got right now with the administration we got right now. And I'm saying when Obama ran for president the first time, I'm telling you, that was probably the most active participation in politics that Black America has been involved with in a long time.
And that's the only time they are in threat to when Black people come out in mass numbers like that. That's why you see all those voting laws and so many restrictions trying to be done to suppress the Black vote, because they know if we show up in numbers, that's the only way we can offset the Republicans most of the time.
Well, that too, and then we have to understand the Electoral College and
I see she's trying to. Old girl was talking about, I think Elizabeth Warren talking about trying to eradicate the Electoral College process.
Well, now there's some that's worth a good discussion though, because there's some pros and cons.
Pros and cons. I got you. I understand.
Yeah, there's some pros and cons.
Because strategically advocating those places.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's some pros and cons with that, because man, when you study it, you listen, when you study Electoral College and stuff, you feel like you might as well stay home. not, and
Yeah,
not it.
yeah. Depending on who got all them votes, like you you saw it with like 8 low votes. You like, man, because it's really about key states.
Right. That's why they call it. They you hear terms like swing vote or swing state.
State, yeah.
And it's all on demographics. And remind you, this is an election that's also on the heel of a census. So the census, people don't understand the importance of the census. It sets up the demographics for regions and blocks and all that kind of stuff. So this is a game changer. 2020 is going to change the game with the data, because they separated race from ethnicity and all that kind of stuff. And now, before we close, so I kind of want to wrap it up, because man, like I said, this is gonna be an ongoing conversation. So I'm trying to streamline it into where we can kind of keep continuing, and we're not just all over the place, but it's an ongoing conversation. So I don't want to be too long. But before we wrap it up, I do want to bring up a point, and I'm gonna ask a question. I want to see what your thoughts on it. But 42, you said you want to come back to what you were saying.
Oh yeah, I wanted to say, well, let me also respond to the question. I think it was Kadeem who asked about how we should vote. I would say vote down the agenda. Vote for people who favor reparations the most, and flip it based on that value as much as you can. And another thing, discourage people from saying that they'll just stay home, because if you stay home, you might not represent, like the next stand your ground law or the next stop and frisk law. Definitely vote for the initiatives alone. If you don't vote for any people, at least go for the laws and initiatives. But also I wanted to say that one thing, like I'm saying, like if people have a problem, then just at least be in the path of Black power with us. Because I mean, Tariq could have really had a problem with Yvette Carnell because of what she said about Frances Cress Welsing, but he squashed it and promoted ADOS because he realizes that trillions of dollars trumps what someone said about your mentor, your guidance. You got to put that aside for the resources. And I'm saying that I'm kind of hitting people with a little bit more tough love. I'm like, all right, you don't really feel comfortable in the argument for reparations. I get that. A lot of us don't, because the first thing you're going to do is you're going to get lazy shamed. Nobody's going to give you a check. And my response to that, I've had white people come up my channel and say that is, unfortunately, the country's so racist that we got to put in a lot of work to get reparations when it should have just been a given.
Yeah,
like it was for everybody else. So you can't lazy shame me, because I'm going to work knowing that some of my money may go to buying politicians. I won't necessarily give away that strategy to them, but it'll go into politics because, there's so much bigotry. It'll go into media because I'm interested in how the next generation sees us. Because right now, cold question, most people are against reparations because it hasn't had any type of advocacy dealing with what happened after slavery. When like if you listen to slave narratives, they were just said they gave us a meal and said to get on, and then they had no idea that there would be so much sabotage in the future and people getting lynched down to the child in Arkansas, and riots in Cincinnati and Rosewood. They had to develop against all that propaganda. And I think when you put it to people like that, they're like, oh, this is a conveyor belt of human rights violations. It's not something that ended and was addressed.
There you go.
It ended, and they continue to the point where by not addressing it, all the way up to now with what's going on with Joy Reid, it's just a continued conveyor belt of human rights violations. And I get that, people want to, that argument might not be for them, but I'm saying, especially to my Pan-African brothers, if you want to fix something, if you're worried about what King Sosa said about, and this is something people shouldn't say in public, but if you're really concerned about what are we going to do with it if it happened, what would we do with the resources, then I'd say do something about fixing that church. I say to the Pan-African people, from Umar Johnson, that school he talks about should be our religious institutions all the way across the world. If you're Pan-African, you know, do that, make that power move, but don't impede what's going on with the push for reparations, because obviously we're making more progress than we were 5 months ago. You didn't hear any candidates talking about that. I mean, unless you were paying attention, I didn't hear about it in real time, about that thing with the Dream Democrat agenda.
No, you didn't hear it in the 2008 race, the 2012, 2016. Now you are. And what is the common denominator for why that has occurred? It is the ADOS movement that we talking about right now. That's why. But at 42, I'm gonna steal that from you. A conveyor belt of human rights violations, because I think that's a beautiful way to put it, because people are focused on slavery, and when you say slavery, most people think of, even though they don't say it, but they're thinking of chattel slavery, and that's it. They're not looking at the continuation and the evolving of human rights violations from chattel slavery to black codes, to Jim Crow and everything. And this is why we got to keep emphasizing that. That's why I always say from 1619 all the way up to 1952. If you can show that you are a lineal descent from somebody that's born within that time range, and the fact that they were classified as black, Negro, colored, African American, Afro American, Black American, and all of the synonyms, then you are part of this class. It's just that simple. It's just that simple, you know. Well, a little more complex than that, but you know, it's not that hard. But I did want to address something about the political party thing too, is that, because I've seen that come up. It's like, well, if we have an attitude of, if you talking to the candidate, if none of the candidates supports reparations, does that mean that we're not going to vote? And the answer is no. Is that that's not what we're saying. That's not what ADOS is advocating. And it's more so with 42, what you said. And also we have to keep in mind that voting someone into office is really still only the beginning, because while in office, you can still pressure. Because remember, politicians move based on pressure, not applause. And so if we grow and we throw our weight around, you still have things that these politicians support while they're in office. It's like, people forget that their road begins to get there, but then while they're there, they still have to deal with their constituents. They still have to deal with their people that they're supposed to represent, and this, that, and the third. So it's not so it's not 100% just about the voting process of getting someone in there. It's also what takes place after whoever gets there is there. So, we gotta think about that too. So, but now, cause like I said, I don't want to be too long on here. But let me just put this idea out there, and this is a logical thing. This is logic, okay? It's hypothetical, but it's based on logic, and I just want y'all's thoughts on it. Think about this, and I don't know if I said this in one of our shows before, but anyway, so now we as Black America, all right, we've been complaining. Now I'm not even gonna make a distinction between ADOS versus Black immigrants. I'm gonna use the flat black for now, the whole Black America. For Black America, for a long time, we've been complaining about our condition. We've been complaining of how we've been treated, how we've been seen, how we've been labeled, how we've been criminalized, and all the above. We've been complaining about that. And this has been going all the way back from the early 1900s, with the onset of groups like the Moorish Science Temple of America, Nation of Islam, and coming forward, coming towards the present, all the different groups, right? One of the common themes that all these different institutions and groups and organizations have is a complaint about our conditions and about how we're treated and all that, right? So my question is, why hasn't there ever been a real push for a mass migration of Black America into a block of the United States of America in order to control the macro level of your own society. And I don't mean a nation within a nation and all that kind of stuff. So I want to make that disclaimer already. What I'm talking about, like for example, every state of the United States is a sovereign entity with a very limited amount of their sovereignty being relinquished in exchange for protection from the federal government. All right. And the governor of every state is equivalent to the president of the United States. So every state has the three branches of government as well. The governor being the executive, then you got the legislation and then the judicial, all that kind of stuff. So if we as Black America was to migrate and become the demographic of any one state or multiple states, let's say the Southeast, let's say Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, and Florida, then wouldn't that allow us to exercise all of the things that we have been complaining about and to actually make actionable our solutions that we have all come up with over this long period of time? And so my question is, why hasn't there been a real push for that? Okay, that's one. But let me just give a little more context because the pushback that I've got, let me just kind of push back on the pushback that I can assume from having this conversation before. So, because some people think that it's not realistic. Now, what I want people to do when we get off here, I want people to look up the demographics of South Carolina from its inception, from when South Carolina was a colony, and then it became a state, and all the way up to the present. Just look at the demographic numbers of the population, whites versus blacks versus other, or whatever the case is. And I want people to look at the numbers and how those numbers play out from when it first formed up until now. And you'll see that South Carolina was mostly a black state. It overwhelmingly was on the black side than the white side. 2 point something to 1, over 2 to 1. Then in more recent times, I think as of 1940, I believe, it shifted to the point where South Carolina now is dominated by white. And so so within that time frame, there's been a migration in of white people or out of black people. So I say that because it's not far-fetched. What I'm saying is not far-fetched at all. And plus, right after the Civil War and stuff, you have mass migration of blacks from the South going towards the North. So my thing is, why hasn't there been a real top of the list type of part of an agenda of all these groups to migrate into one sector, at the very least, to deal with the politics, to deal with the government? And lastly, for example, look at Utah. One group of people, even though it's on the basis of religion, the Mormons migrated to Utah and have taken over Utah. So I'm saying those two examples because it's not far-fetched and it's something that we have real models for. And so that's my question. Because all this complaining, why hasn't that been a real viable option and put at the top of the list of any agenda of all these different organizations? So that's my question. Y'all could kind of chime in on that.
Can I chime in real quick on that?
Yeah.
I don't know if you're aware of him, but there was a man named Edward P. McCavey in 1890. He, in a nutshell, embraced everything that you just said, forming a political bloc, migrating to a region to where we could have not necessarily sovereignty, but governmental power. And the conversation grew to producing Oklahoma to become an all-black state. This is when it was Indian Territory. And the movement he made reached from state to state. There are so many newspaper articles from different regions that cover this discussion. He even made it to the presidential level and conversations on producing Oklahoma as an all-black state. So that idea has been tried. I'll send you some information on them if you haven't heard of them. But I did want to say that. Now, what hurt it was, as you said, the migrations. During this time period, you've seen a migration north for people to join the what they call the Industrial Revolution era. Uh, Everybody started going to get city jobs. This is when you see us giving up land to produce um, a city paycheck. Instead of having your own land trying to work for self, we gave up the land to work for cities because of quote unquote higher wages. And if you track the history of it, you see so many pits in that, because this is where the lynchings spike. This is where you see a spike in lynching. And I think the whole ADOS conversation is very much on time, because they're even trying to change the dynamics of what lynching was. I took a class, it was specifically on lynching, and they're trying to change the definition of it to a corporal punishment, saying anything from having eggs thrown at you was considered a lynching. While Black America sees it totally different. If you say lynch, the first thing that pops in your mind is a rope in a tree. I don't want to get too long-winded, but if you do look into Edward P. McCavey, you'll see how that came about. And
Okay.
at one time, Oklahoma had 50 all-Black states. Not states, cities. Right now, 13 of them still remain.
Mm-hmm. So now I appreciate that, because like I said, that now when I had this discussion, in the previous conversation I had, I was saying it. I'm not saying you're saying it either, but I wasn't saying it that it has never been attempted. I guess I should have clarified a little bit just now too, is why isn't it part of the conversation now with these major, because like my cutoff point in my mind was the early 1900s, starting with these major institutions like the Moore Science Temple, Nation of Islam headquarters is in Chicago, Illinois, and so on and so forth. Like, it's not part of the conversation now. So even if it was attempted, like you said, and you have a working example of that, it's not part of the conversation now. It hasn't bubbled up to be a part of the conversations now as an actual strategy. Now, it may be people written about it, but I'm saying it's not part of the conversation. Just like reparations was not a part of the conversation, even though you had groups that's supposed to represent reparations. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think a big part of that on the psychological level, this is something I like to say in chats. One of our biggest psychological problems as of now, we suffer from a polar complex. We are discouraged and resentful at the same time. We're discouraged to go against the system, but we resent our own leadership. And you see this in forms. For example, a new common thing to say is, I follow not my own leader, as opposed to America itself. Look how many people say, well, Donald Trump may not be the best, but he's still the president, so I respect that position. And the discouragement, that comes into, of course, the systematic racism we have. But the resentment, look at what they did to ADOS immediately. And this is really just a conversation that they're trying to get out to the public. And look at that psychology. It was immediately resisted by us. No one else is resisting it at the moment, because those with power know it's just a conversation at the moment. As it grows, though, that's when you'll see more and more of them start chiming into the conversation and kind of keep an umbrella over it. So I think that's the biggest issue. We have to get past the resentment and discouragement levels amongst ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah, that's that that's that white supremacy in play, because it's crazy when you see when you hear other Black folks going against it, and then you see white candidates trying to embrace it. It's like, how are they missing that? Sometimes I like, why? How do you not see that? You got white people going on TV, even if they ain't full support of it, they at least trying to say, you know what, I don't agree to the whole extent, but they're trying to do something in favor of it. You know what I'm saying? They ain't just like, oh, it's crap. You know what I'm saying?
Wait,
But
an actual example of what you're saying is Polesi, who embraced the conversation about reparations, and then Clyburn, who openly said no.
yeah,
That's the exact real time example of what you just said, where you have somebody who's non-ADOS, who gave the public appearance of embracing the conversation about reparations, and then you have an ADOS person who actually represents South Carolina at that.
yeah, I
Who
saw it. Yeah.
who adamantly said no. So you know, I mean, I was gonna throw that in there as a
Yeah.
real example of what you're saying.
But you know, I think it's easy for those people like that to say no because of the position that they're in. You know, and even I had to take that type of look back at myself because you know it's easy for people to be like, you know, because you hear people say, you know what, y'all go ahead and beg. I'm finna stay here and get my money and do what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, you know, like I live in Atlanta. I be thinking to myself, like, you know, I live in Atlanta, like, you know, like I do pretty well. But it's about more than just me. And for me to have that attitude is like it's extremely selfish to
Exactly.
think that way. You know what I'm saying? So I have to, you know, so it's like you kind of have to check yourself, you know, in that aspects of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, if all of us ain't getting it, then we can't just be satisfied. You know, and I think as far as the mass movement goes too, it's like I think you know, like I said, I'm not from Atlanta. I came here from South Carolina. And I promise you, like Atlanta was a breath of fresh air when I left Charleston. Like I didn't even see I didn't see the world like I did until I got here. Like in Charleston, black folks weren't getting it like this where I was from. You know what I'm saying? It changed my motive of thinking when I got here. Like I had never seen nothing like this, and a lot of people haven't seen anything like that in real time to identify with it. Because if they did, they would move in a hurry. You know what I'm saying? The thing about Atlanta is that you know, Atlanta had Freaknik. And it was so popular, it attracted a lot of black people here. And then when they came and saw it, it was like, oh man, like I'm staying.
So you're telling on yourself. That's why you can't. That's why you
Yeah,
can't.
like that's one of the reasons I can't somebody bring me here. And when I saw everybody hustling, getting money. I'm used to seeing when I see in Charleston, we see somebody in Mercedes, 9 times out of 10, that's a white person. You even got to look. In Atlanta, you like, no, black person, black person, black person, black person, white person. Black, you know what I'm saying? It's like it's a culture shock.
Hey, let me just say this real quick. Kevin Lott inside of the chat, I appreciate it. He gave a website, AfricanAmericanHomeland.com. I'm gonna look into that. He said it's a modern day return migration ADOS to 8 southern states to create an economic community of 8 southern states, also for political control of ADOS, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know how long that's been at play or whatever, but that's just my question is just a question of logic. You know, it's just something that I see. Like for example, the conflict, what it seems, between Pan-Africanists and Pan-Africanism versus the now, you know, this ADOS movement. These kind of things creep up because the average Pan-African's attitude is, you know, self-determination, do for self, but they cite those things, those talking points, as a way to not support ADOS. And so I asked, which is fine, like self-determination and all that stuff are qualities that we all should be pushing towards, but to use that as talking points not to support ADOS causes me to ask what I asked you all. I'm like, okay, if you are Pan-African and you talking about self-determination and you know, total separation from white supremacy, blah blah blah, then are you a United States citizen while you're saying that? Like, what do you say while you are filling out your taxes every year, whether it's on the state or the federal level and all that kind of stuff? Like, there's certain realities that has to be at play while we make these aspirations, because I asked, I said, okay, well, we are not forced to stay in this country right now. So to stay here and play on the outside at the same time as complain is insane. That's crazy. It's almost like being kidnapped and thrown in somebody's basement, locked up in somebody's basement, and tortured and forced to do X, Y, and Z, all kinds of things. And then all of a sudden, you're free to go. You're no longer forced to stay there. And then you stay there and still complain. That's like, you know, a very summary analogy of how I hear people when they make these arguments and cite that as a reason. You know, instead of getting on board with ADOS, educating themselves, advocating, and walking and chewing gum at the same time. Have those aspirations. Try to interconnect with the global African community and our brothers and sisters on the continent, et cetera, which is a couple of things under the umbrella of Pan-Africanism and its aspirations, but also support this reparative justice claim here, and so on and so forth. But people are using them at odds, like they can't do one if they focus on the other one, although the other one seems more like the pipe dream, because you're living here. You're living here, not participating in the macro politics and government, but yet you're complaining
and raging out against the system that you're not participating in fixing.
But hold up, but now here's the catch. You're not participating in the macro level of governance, and you're complaining, but you are participating on the micro level of paying taxes. So you are funding your own
incarceration, basically.
Yeah, you're funding the machine that you are against on the state and local levels. And who knows what else you're doing? You're paying sales tax on food. You're supporting this, that, and the other. Even though we say black-owned businesses, people don't understand that business ties back to government. The thing that people say when they say the business is really your storefront, the end result, not the whole business. A business is like a chain of things, and it goes all the way back to government. So even in that. So to me, it's really crazy, and I think that people need a wake up call to really slow things down and really think about what it is that we say and what it is that we think we mean. Because if people realize it, it's like, wait a minute, you're right. Hold up, I'm a United States citizen. Even on my passport, my nationality says United States of America, but yet I don't participate because I got this attitude that I want to do for self and self-determination, and I'm like, F the system and F the white man, this and the other, and I want to link up with my brothers and sisters all over the world, but yet I live here, and I'm paying taxes on my home, paying taxes on my car, paying taxes on all the retail stuff. I'm paying federal taxes, and if I avoid that, I'm gonna be locked up, and I gotta drive on these streets, and I gotta do this, and I'm supporting. So, man, what am I doing? So while I'm here, I better participate. You know what I'm saying? Like, the attitude needs to change, and we could do both at the same time. But anyway, I mean, that's all I said. I was trying to just say something to kind of wrap it up. But anybody got anything in closing? I know I was kind of all over the place with that.
I just want to say this too, like, even as far as the Pan-Africanist thing goes, like, instead of like how you say, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. I think that phrase needs to be we have to walk and chew gum at the same time. It's not an option. Like, you need to chew gum and walk at the same time. Like, you need to be a person of many hats. You can't run on a political platform with a Pan-African hat on. So you got to be the spook that's sat by the door. You got to change your hat. And you got to get in there, because sometimes we need that Pan-African mindset in office. But you can't wear that hat to the club, because if they see you, they ain't going to let you in. So you got to be able to take that hat off, put this hat on, because you need this hat to get in there. Once you get in there with the Pan-African type of mind, and then you can Donald Trump it. You know what I'm saying? Pretty much.
Hey, the analogy that I give is like this. Like, right now, your screen name is I Am King Sosa. Now, let's say you were a staunch Pan-Africanist, and that was your name that everybody knew you as in the Pan-African community. Now, when you're in the Pan-African community, everybody knows you as King Sosa. King Sosa, what's up, King Sosa? What's up, Sosa? What's up, Sosa? And this, that, and the third, and everything is all good. But the moment that you walk into any government agency, gotta fill out a form or any kind of formal this, that, and the third, you are not gonna put down I Am King Sosa on that paper. And I use it as an analogy because deep down, we know how to play the game. We know when and the context of using this, that, and the third. So we already do it. Like a lot of times people complain about stuff that we already do. And so we make it personal and emotional and when we get into the like and dislike, you know what I'm saying? So it's crazy. That's crazy. But I give that analogy to kind of match what you were just saying. You were saying, you know, you were saying the same thing. So I'm saying people got to understand that while we live here, we have a reparative justice claim to chase, to demand and everything. We might as well do it because none of us, if we're realistic, none of us are packing our bags tomorrow and going to Liberia, going to Ghana, going to Sierra Leone or these African countries that have kind of hinted at dual citizenship, you know, and repatriation and all that kind of stuff. We're not doing that really. Like, we got to be real. People ain't trying to leave for real. And we're not. I'm on a large thing, and we're not forced to stay here. So that conversation is outdated. That conversation is like, well, we were forced to be here. Like, true, but we're not right now. So what is your excuse right now? If you're not going to participate, but yet you're going to sit there and complain, then why don't you bounce? You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's what it really comes down to. Just bounce. Just roll out. But nah. You know what I'm saying? So then people get mad at ADOS for acknowledging the flag, you know, the regular United States flag. They're like, "Whoa, man, why you using that flag? Why don't you use the red, black, and green, or this and that and whatnot?"
It's wrong flag.
And they yeah, but they use that to say, see, it's not just that alone. They use that to say that ADOS is an integrationist movement, it's an assimilationist movement, or it's trying to get in bed with the imperialist and all that kind of stuff. I've seen it. I've seen people make these accusations, and so, but they never understand that black immigrants or immigrants, period, they come here for the opportunities, and they're never accused of trying to get in bed with the imperialists. But yet, the moment that us already living here want to also get what's due ours, now all of a sudden we get accused of being in bed with imperialists and all this and that and the third. You see what I'm saying? So man, I'm telling you, overall, we need a paradigm shift. We got to really, really change the mentality of our people. And it's not going to happen on these street corner rap battle debating where people are just arguing over irrelevant issues about Yvette's sexuality or whether Antonio Moore, why does he wear an LA hat all the time, and all this peripheral stuff. Oh, I don't like the acronym. Why don't you use enslave Africans? You know. Now that's one thing we forgot to get into tonight was about this whole disconnect with Africa and stuff. So I'm gonna pick it up. Like I said, I'm gonna
we'll start the next one with title that one, Africa.
Yeah. I'm gonna continue the conversation. So I'm trying to, you know, I don't have many subscribers and stuff. By the way, whoever's tuned in, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit the notification bell. And I'm gonna try to advertise when I do go live, give some forewarning and whatnot, like schedule it early on so people can know. And I just want to continue the conversation. Sometimes we may kind of go all over the place, but that's the nature of beginning this type of discussion. Plus, there's so much to talk about, and then there's new things to talk about that pops up. So
hey, one more thing before you go. You know what I think too is I like what another thing she does that I think is beneficial, and I never paid attention when I was young. It's like the whole club thing.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? I used to be like, that's corny. But now that I read a lot, I'm like, you know what? I'm like, that's super dope. Like, we need more of those.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's good. Book clubs are always good. Go ahead.
I'm so glad a lot of the key points in the past 5 minutes got spoken on paradigm shift. And was that Sosa or 42 that just spoke about the book club formations?
That's me. That's Sosa.
Okay. And peace to you, by the way. I think another thing that we need to talk about in these paradigm shifts is stop making the rebellious spirit we have synonymous with criminal activity. Um, and somebody spoke on it earlier, saying it was gangster for someone going into the system and saying, "I'm fighting for my freedom. I'm taking this
Yeah,
to
yeah,
court.
yeah.
I'm going." And I hate to use those words and make it sound like I'm shooting myself in the foot, but look at the state of a lot of us. A lot of us think that choosing the street mentality is a way to rebel against what's going on, and not realizing that's one of the biggest threats we have is when you pull yourself out of education and you pull yourself out of the opportunity to advance economically or socially. And that's one of the things we have to address in house as well. But before we all chimed out, I wanted to say I put an article in the YouTube and I put an article in here that it gives us a synopsis to what's been going on with the reparations fight to the Greenwood riots. And it's coming up on the 100 years of it. It's an old article, but it shows some of the mechanics of what they did. It doesn't go into full detail, but it's in there. It probably take about 3.5 minutes to read, but it's just more brain food on this conversation. And I put that in both of the little chats in here.
Back chatty, I see it.
All right, so yeah, let me see. Who we still have? We still got everybody in here because not too many people wanted to come here. Oh, we got a couple people. Oh, I'm by sports still history scholar. So yeah, does anybody have any kind of concise closing remarks? So because I want to wrap it up. You know, 'cause like I said, I'm trying to keep it. You know, I know sometimes we may get all over the place though. That's just gonna be a nature of the
Yeah, just when you're
conversation.
done, just hit it with the hey, all right, we out, peace. That's it.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
in a conversation. But go ahead.
I think go. I think you should continue it, and I don't think we should be afraid of it expanding into different conversations. It's kind of like spring cleaning. Um, it often gets messy before it gets to the perfection of cleaning. You know, you're cleaning out drawers, you're cleaning out this. So I don't think we should be afraid to bring it all to the surface because that's part of the healing and part of the awareness of what we're going to need to identify what we truly need and what we truly want. So I think it's healthy. And I'm glad that you took the time to do this because we associate in a lot of similar chats. All of us do. And if you just really look at the conversation, it's disheartening to what we are actually all at heart fighting for. And that is for a moment to breathe and just exist on this planet. I mean, at the end of the day, this goes into one thing that we leaving out that's not emphasized enough is human rights, and we need to bring that to the forefront. Like we trap ourselves in the bubble of saying African or black, but we also have to make it totally transparent that we are human, and we are saying we want our human rights. And that's something that just needs to be done. I mean, all of us want to live, all of us have children, all of us aspire for great things on this planet. So we need to bring these conversations out and stop being afraid to say we have suffered. You know, there's not a king or army that hasn't taken a loss. There's not a basketball team, football team that hasn't taken a loss. Those losses are not what define a lot of the ones that we admire. It's the victories. So don't be afraid to say we suffering. We need the ones who have suffered to come forth, especially at the moment with a conversation like this, because it's going to give more data instead of just saying, look at the statistics of the economic aspect. What about all the ones who are actually going through this? And you know, and we've seen this kind of happen with the emergence of social media when we started seeing footage of all the police brutality and murders. Look how that changed the whole dynamic of everybody saying racism was dead. It brought it right back to the forefront to say we are still going through it. A lot of us knew it and was aware of it, but if we said it, oh, that's a scapegoat. It's kind of like how we see in a lot of these chats. Oh, y'all just lazy and looking for handouts, and that's not the case. There's a lot of us that work our fingers down to the bone and nothing amounts from it. And that's part of the problem. It's like, why am I working so hard to get so little? But that, you know, we catch the catch 22 of that, because look at what's being promoted by a higher power. Oh, you can take your clothes off, girl, and become rich. Oh, you can sell this poison to your brother and rob from your brother and become rich. Versus us having a system that protects those of us that are not there. And I think at the end of the day, that's what the ultimate goal of this whole conversation is to do, is to help those of us that actually need the help to get on our feet, instead of that saying of tie your boots and tighten up your own belt and get it for self. A lot of us have been robbed of boots, belts, hats, clothes, shoes, and pants, and we just need a chance to just say, hey, I can do it myself if given that opportunity.
Yeah, that's that's good. That's good to close on. I just want to say this for everybody who's still tuned in. And if you watching this on archive and you watch this long video, then man, I really appreciate that. And so I'm gonna try to keep these videos a little shorter, so we can kind of, cause I want them to bite size, you know, a little more bite size. So I may double up on how often I do this so I can shrink the time that we're on, cause I think we've been on for going 3 hours now. So see, I'm gonna try to shorten it up. And what I want to do is to directly address some of the things that are being said. You know, get into the nitty gritty and the juicy issues that people are saying against ADOS, and really address it, because that's what I've been doing on Facebook at least. So you know, we got to do that too, because like I said earlier, it's coming from a place of ignorance, and only cure for ignorance is knowledge. That's how you reverse that. And so we'll see where that goes. But I do want to address some of the things that people are saying, because in the long run, everything, like I'm gonna tell you, out of 100%, about 90% of the conversations that I've seen on social media are irrelevant to what needs to be advocated, and what's being advocated. It's outside the scope. People are either mad at the acronym. People are either arguing over Yvette being too light skinned, her sexuality. They're mad at Tone for some weird stuff, like the hat he wears. Or I don't know. Like, they pick on Yvette more than Antonio. What else are they mad? Oh, and then they create an exaggerated forms of these statements that are taken out of sound bites, as far as like Yvette saying she's not African, but not trying to understand what is meant by that in the context. You know, they hear it and then boom, they run with it. Up, see, they trying to disconnect from Africa. How you gonna do that? See, you know, it's almost people are looking, you know, and you know, the elders, you know, when you grow up, older people tell you this all the time. They say it's two things that I always remember. They say that you, like, what do they say? Water seeks the path of least resistance. And that's how our mind works too. It seeks the path of least resistance, which means it's lazy. And so we will find all kinds of ways not to do something versus all kinds of ways to do something. And so when our conscious is put in that snuggled position, it will reach for any excuse not to support or not to do something that requires work and requires thinking, critical thinking. That's in psychology. You know, you can understand all the mechanisms why by diving into psychology for that. But that's what happens. And then on the flip side, it takes one screw up to I remember a person told me this. Is one of my old bosses back in the day. He said that it takes one screw up to erase 10 data boys. And for those who don't know, a data boy is like, you know, giving you kudos, like patting you on the back, like you did 10 good things. So it takes one bad thing to erase 10 good things. So that's the ratio. The ratio is 10 to 1. That's how our mind works. You could do 10 good things, but boy, you slip up one time, it's gonna make people forget about the 10 good things you did. And so some of that is going on. Some of that is at play right here, you know, but in the form of imagination though as well. For example, like I said, Yvette says she's not African. So you got one video, recent video where Yvette says the statement that I'm not African, I'm American. But although she gives context to it, people ignore the context. Then they ignore a whole entire video where she does a whole DNA, her DNA result reveal, where she shows she's like almost 70% African. And she's talking about it goes back to Benin and this, that, and the third and all that. So how is it that this person is doing a DNA reveal showing that she's 60 to 70% African, close to 70% African and stuff, then says I'm not African? People got to think and say, okay, well, what does that mean? It sounds like a contradiction, but it's not. One is an anthropological discussion and context, and the other is in a legal context. Legally and politically, we're not African. Anthropologically, I will say all day, every day, I am of African descent. And it only means that I have a recent ancestry that comes from the continent of Africa. But when you take that statement and then you come into a room of legislation and legal processes and politics and stuff, that statement has no value. And because ADOS is within the scope of a reparative justice claim, then you have to use and stay in the boundary of reparative justice nomenclature and jargon and stances and so on and so forth. Period. The same way that on the street, if I say person, everybody's going to think of a flesh and blood breathing person. But the moment you step into a courtroom, a business can be a person. But on the street, you're not going to think of a business as a person. But in a courtroom, a business can sue another person because it's a person. It has a social security number, but we call it a EIN instead of a tax ID. It has a birth certificate that we call the Articles of Incorporation or Articles of Organization if it's an LLC. You know what I'm saying? So people got to know where you are and what to do. Like I said, in a Pan-African setting, a diehard Pan-Africanist can be called I am King Sosa. Everybody know him as Sosa. What's up, Sosa, 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 Sosa? But the moment that diehard Pan-Africanist goes inside the Department of Motor Vehicles to get a driver's license or to get this, that, and the third, they are not going to put I am King Sosa down. Why? Because he would know where he is and what applies there. Same thing. This is what people got to understand. This is not some conscious community debate stuff. This is some serious stuff. This is political. This is legislative. This is legal, law. All that stuff applies. And people are going to have to understand the terms, the terminology, the nomenclature, the vernacular, how they're defined, how they're used, and to use it to our advantage. So we are American. We are citizens of the United States of America, which gives us the right to have rights. By the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, we are lineal descendants of victims of the institution of slavery and all of its vestiges, Jim Crow, black codes, all the et ceteras, up until 1952. That's it. And we are due justice. And reparative justice comes in 5 major forms. The one that everybody focuses on is money. That is only one form. That's called compensation. But you have restitution, you got compensation, and you got 3 other forms. Nobody talks about. But it's covered in that black agenda. But anyway, make sure subscribe to this channel, but make sure that you visit Yvette Carnell's channel. Hear it from the horse's mouth. And I don't like that saying. I don't like to call people horses, but everybody knows what that means. Hear directly from her. Subscribe to Antonio. Follow them on Twitter because you'll keep up with their tweets and everything. Join their Facebook group. There's a Facebook group also with a whole bunch of people sharing information and stuff. Like because people think it's just Yvette and Antonio sometimes. But man, listen, Yvette. Hold up, let's see. How many followers Yvette got right now? I just want to see something real quick. I got it pulled up real quick. What is it? Like Yvette's YouTube channel, she has 60,000 subscribers. Now, of course, we know people that got more than that, but that's 60,000 subscribers. And then I don't know how many Twitter followers or whatnot, whatever. But it's grown. And then people say, oh, man, they just talk about reparations just to get followers and to get known and stuff. Like, duh. If you are an advocate of something and you have the data and you are the educator of this, then you want exposure. Like, where do they do that at? Like, how does somebody use that against you? If I'm trying to champion a movement, and I got the data and I'm trying to share it, I want as many eyes on it as possible. So yes, I want as many subscribers and followers as I can. Not for me, but for the exposure of the info. So it kills me when people be saying that. Like, I swear, man. So anyway, I know I'm ranting, so I want to close out. So next time I go live, I want to kind of pick up and kind of address some of the issues like head on. Like let's quote some issues that people are saying. Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to say good night and thank you, because I'm going to be heading out. And since you had mentioned issues, there's one I wanted to toss out, and just to get people thinking about it, is actually doing what I was saying with Joy Reid, doing a petition. Because it's been done before, and there's already people who would against Joy Reid, whatever, but also doing it to bring light to what's going on so it can be checked. Because I've noticed that people that have criticized ADOS, it's like you said, Ujal, it's mostly been strawman stuff. So it's just stuff that if they had studied a little bit more, even when I first had some critiques for it, I mentioned something where if I did a little bit more research and it covered what I had, the concern that I had. So, and I'm someone who had been watching a lot of their videos before that. So it's, people are going to be critics. And to me, it's a matter of which are the ones that are actually trying to go out and reach a big crowd. And so far, it's MSNBC and Joy Reid. So I'm thinking, and this is just something I thought about this morning after watching that video with that dude. So that's all I wanted to leave. And thanks again. And just if you can't think about that.
Yeah, all right.
It kind of sounds crazy at first, but
no. I think that's on point, and I want to say thanks for jumping in, because I've never used my own channel. Like I've been a YouTube user, but I never used my channel. I've been on because people know me for ancient Kemet, the culture of Kemet. I teach the language and the whole nine. That's what people know me for. So I use other channels and outlets. So now I'm using my own channel for other topics like this, So I don't have many subscribers, so I appreciate anybody who tunes in, especially jumps on the panel and have a discussion, because I want a more mature, slow down discussion, even if it's disagreements or whatever. I feel that that's healthy, and I think that so far so good. So I thank all y'all for coming on and everything. And I want to keep it up. So so if you see a notification, I'm gonna keep this conversation going about ADOS and maybe some other things, but primarily ADOS right now. because I think that it's very important for people to cut out the unnecessary arguing. It's crazy. It's real crazy. But no, I think you're on point with that, because people need to understand that just because you see a black sister sitting in a seat on TV, it tends to allow us to drop our guards down, and we're not critical. And one thing that ADOS is advocating is be critical of everything. It doesn't matter, because if you really think about it, we are our own worst enemy, because psychologically we have this inclusion exclusion type of thing that goes on, where as we look at people who are not us, and we could throw our guards up because visually they're different. And so we tend to guard up. But then people that look like us, we put our guards down, we let them close, we let them in. But if you notice, those are the folks that have access to you. And so we can't do this colorism type stuff anymore. We gotta go on issues, go on facts, go on the realities. We can't be doing anymore. Like, this is a new time, man. I'm telling you, man, this world, if y'all ain't noticed, man, there's a lot of things outside of just what we got going on. We got some other things like climate change, global warming, the stuff that's going on. China doing this thing with it's build up. Like, people are not paying attention to its slow growth and how it's interfacing on the global market. Its fingerprints in Africa now and all these other countries and stuff like that. And look at us. We're 22 trillion, 22 trillions dollars is the national debt. And Trump has the biggest tax thing and budget. His budget is like really, really, like, are we examining that? Like, on these platforms, who do you see that's actually dissecting the budget proposal? We don't look at it like that because we have this apolitical stance. We think politics is them. Oh, that's the white man science. Oh, politics, that's the white man stuff. Man, we got to get out of that. If we don't, then let's just pack up and leave. Then, like, if we here, we gotta get it. Gotta get it, man. We built this country, bro, and we gotta see. Okay, I'm gonna say this last because I always do this. But listen, the black and white, we have to understand that there was no such thing as a white person prior to 1681. And I don't mean that there was no people walking around that look like the people that we call white, but there were no white people prior to 1681. At that date and after is when this caste system with color labels was created. And so the trick is, because these hierarchical ranks are labeled as colors, our minds tend to blur it into phenotype and looks. So we say we're black, and then we got light-skinned blacks, to the blue black people who would say blue black skinned people, and then white people from the blonde hair, blue eye to the red hair, brunettes, and whatever. So we tend to do this lookership thing when it comes to these things, but they're not. They are caste systems where black, it could have been called anything. It could have been called Ugla Boogla. And once you understand that, then you realize, okay, well, what is the inclusion? Remember, every classification system, for every category, there is a default inclusion and exclusion statement or requirement. And so what is the inclusion exclusion for the black? It is failure, exploitation, consumer, and I could think of some more words. White is ownership, control, producer. And so we psychologically saying we're black and we're proud, we are falling for the trick by only looking at the unification on this our desire to unify based on something that's common, which is not them. Because when you know, back in the 70s, when we say we're black and we're proud, we're really saying we are us and y'all are y'all. Not knowing that forces us into this game, into this being this exploitative consumer failure class, and we're still there. So ADOS as an advocacy movement, we are trying to change that. We're trying to take ownership, and to take ownership, you got to tie it back into the government. The government is the what do you call it? The hub of all of this. It's just that the government we haven't participated in has been mistreating us. So we tend to be apolitical. We tend to be anti all that stuff. But we got to flip it. But anyway, I don't want to keep ranting. So anyway, I appreciate everybody tuning in. And so I'm gonna tune off. Make sure you all subscribe, and I'm gonna do this. If y'all are on Facebook, hit me up on Facebook, because you know I like to stay connected. All right. I like to stay connected, so hit me up on Facebook. Join the Facebook groups. You know, let's stay in touch. But anyway, I'm gonna say peace to everybody, and I appreciate everybody tuning in.
Yeah.
Right. Peace.
So long.